Hey guys, tonight we were diving headfirst into the shimmering, scandal-soaked world of Cleopatra's Seventh. Yes, the Cleopatra history, this original multitasker who somehow managed to run an empire, charm two of Rome's most powerful men, and still find time for eyeliner sharp enough to cut through geopolitical tension. Before we begin this soothing spiral into ancient chaos, take a second to like the video and subscribe, but only if you actually enjoy hanging out here at 2 a.m. listening to aggressively calming historical nonsense. Leave a comment telling me what you're doing right now, bonus points, if it is folding laundry you've been ignoring since the Ptolemaic era. Now, dim those lights, put on a fan for that soft white noise, get comfortable, and maybe hide under a blanket in case a stray Roman legion decides to march through your living room. Before we drift gently into Cleopatra's world, I want you to consider a few things. Have you ever wondered what it's like to rule a kingdom while your own siblings are constantly plotting to kill you? Like a family reunion hosted by HBO? Did Cleopatra really bathe in milk? Or was that just ancient skincare propaganda? What does it feel like to negotiate with Julius Caesar while he is wearing shoes made of literal leather and ambition? Would you survive ancient Egyptian breakfast, or would you politely decline everything because you're not really hungry in the mornings? Could you build a navy from scratch while also dealing with Mark Antony's dramatic monologues and questionable life choices? And how would you handle the end of a dynasty quiet dignity or a strongly worded email to HR? Well, congratulations. You've just woken up in 51 BCE, a year when eyeliner was heavy, politics were deadly, and your entire empire is held together by diplomacy, papyrus, and the sheer force of Cleopatra's personality. Good luck. From the moment you can walk, you're surrounded by marble halls, political expectations, and at least 3 relatives plotting to shove you down a staircase. Welcome to childhood, Ptolemaic edition, where your crib is carved from an imported cedar. Your toys are miniature gold trinkets you're not actually allowed to touch. And your family tree is less of a tree and more of a tangled shrub on fire. You are born into luxury, yes, but also into a dynasty so chaotic it makes modern group chats look like models of diplomacy. Every cooing nursemaid might secretly work for an ambitious uncle. Every smiling courtier could be calculating whether you're more valuable as political ally or a suspiciously timed accident. Congratulations, toddler, you're already in the arena. Let's talk about mornings. You wake up on fine linen sheets softer than anything your modern self has purchased on Black Friday. The air smells faintly of lotus and resin because incense is the ancient worldist version of Febreze necessary, constant and slightly overwhelming. Before you've even stretched your tiny royal arms, attendants are already hovering around you like anxious personal assistants. They're adjusting your blankets, checking your bathwater temperature, and making sure no one has swapped your morning honeyed bread with something less wholesome. It is stressful, considering you can't even form complete sentences yet. Bath time is an ordeal. It involves fragrant oils, warm water, and at least 7 grown adults trying to ensure your skin gleams like a miniature sun god. You'd think this was relaxing, but remember, this is Egypt's royal court. That bathwater has been inspected more thoroughly than a modern TSA bag check. And as you splash around, you get your first taste of what it means to be royal. Everyone wants something from you, even if right now all you want is to chew on a clay toy shaped like a crocodile. Now, let's talk training. In the Ptolemaic dynasty, you don't grow into responsibility. Responsibility is basically shoved into your hands like someone passing you a hot bowl you didn't ask for. Tutors arrive before lunch, bearing scrolls, styluses, and the quiet despair of people who must teach politics to a child who is still mastering the art of not falling over. You learn languages, poetry, philosophy, and the subtle art of not trusting anyone without cross-checking their motives first. It's like preschool, if preschool also involved lessons on how to spot a coup. As you toddle through the palace halls, you encounter marble floors polished so slick you could probably ice skate on them if ice existed here. The walls are covered in frescoes glorifying your ancestors' gods, conquerors, and one or two people who definitely exaggerated their achievements. You're constantly being told tales of your lineage. You are descended from Alexander the Great's companions, they say, while wiping drool off your chin. No pressure. Meals are another adventure. While you are nibbling soft bread or mashed dates, the adults around you engage in layered conversations that are equal parts political debate, strategic maneuvering, and thinly veiled insults. You, meanwhile, are trying to decide whether to eat with your hands or throw your food for dramatic effect. The palace cat is rooting for chaos, but the real tension comes from your siblings. They're acute, sure, but also potentially dangerous. In a dynasty built on power, alliances shift faster than your ability to pronounce Alexandria. Your older siblings eye you like you might someday steal their dreams. Your younger siblings look at you like you might sit on their toys. Nobody's relaxed. Even your bedtime stories end with dramatic moral lessons like trust no one and beware gifts from relatives. At night, as you settle into your tiny royal bed, the palace grows quieter but never fully still. Somewhere, a servant whispers. A torch flickers. Someone is up late plotting tax reforms or something less friendly. You fall asleep under star-patterned ceilings, comforted by luxury but aware, even at your young age, that this life is sharp-edged. Because here, in the royal nursery of the Ptolemies, you're never just a child. You are a future ruler, a potential pawn, and occasionally a very small person dodging metaphorical and sometimes literal daggers. Sleep tight. While everyone else in your dynasty is barely bilingual, you are out here speaking Greek, Egyptian, and half the Mediterranean. You grow up surrounded by scrolls, tutors, and the constant hum of a palace that smells faintly of papyrus and ambition. Most nobles of your era can manage Greek if they squint hard enough and ignore grammar entirely. But you're collecting languages like modern adults collect half-used loyalty cards. By the time you can hold a stylus without dropping it, you've already mastered enough vocabulary to insult someone in 4 different dialects, politely, of course. Even your tutors are impressed, though they try to play it cool, because no one wants to admit the royal toddler is smarter than they are. Let us talk about your training regimen. Every morning you are plopped onto a cushion with the firmness of a well-intentioned marshmallow, and 3 different instructors rotate around you like planets orbiting a tiny, very judgmental sun. One teaches Greek philosophy, another recites Egyptian myths, and the last one tries desperately to get you to stop mixing 2 languages together when you're excited. But you can help it. Your brain is a sponge, and everything feels interesting. Even the laundry charts sound epic when spoken in Middle Egyptian. The palace library becomes your playground. Imagine rows of scrolls stacked neatly in wooden cubbies, each labelled with symbols you can actually read. The air is dry and dusty, like someone tried to preserve knowledge and accidentally created history as largest sneeze trigger. You toddle through the aisles, trailing attendants who are quietly praying you don't knock anything over, because each scroll took months to hand copy, and your tiny sticky fingers are a threat to civilization. You quickly realize that language isn't just a skill, it's power. When you overhear foreign envoys whispering in their native tongues, assuming no one else understands them, you listen. Their gossip is better than any modern reality show. You pick up trade complaints, secret alliances, and the occasional dramatic insult involving goats. You don't tell anyone you can understand all of it. Not yet. Let them underestimate you as adorable. Greek becomes your intellectual home base. It is the language of your dynasty, your court, and your official writings. It is smooth, philosophical, and perfect for drafting laws or complaining elegantly about your brothers. Meanwhile, Egyptian, the everyday language of your people, wraps around you like a warm breeze from the Nile. Speaking, it makes the common people look at you with something like hope. Other Ptolemies barely bothered, but you speak to workers, priests, merchants, everyone. Suddenly, you're not just a ruler from a Macedonian line. You're their ruler, their pharaoh, their voice. It's a political baller move. Your tutors also expose you to Syriac, Aramaic, and bits of Latin, the budding language of Rome, though no one quite realizes yet that Rome is about to overthink itself into global domination. You practice pronunciation carefully, repeating phrases until your voice grows hoarse. Your attendants watch with pride. Meanwhile, your siblings grow increasingly annoyed that you can ask for figs in 3 ways and they still can't conjugate a verb. Some lessons are more chaotic than others. Picture yourself sitting among clay tablets, trying to copy characters with a reed pen that refuses to cooperate. Ink stains your hands. Your tutor sighs dramatically every time you ask, "Why does this letter look like a confused bird?" You receive no answer. Ancient scripts are simply built different. Through it all, you learn something essential. Language is a doorway. When you speak someone's words really speak them, their face softens. Their posture shifts. Their stories pour out like water from a newly opened jar. You get access to hearts, minds, and agendas. You become someone no one can easily deceive, because you can read not just their words, but their tone, their pauses, their hesitations, and slowly the palace notices. You are young, but already you are becoming Cleopatra, the queen who listens, who understands, who speaks to sailors and scholars and generals with equal confidence. It's your secret weapon in a world where most nobles think yelling slowly in Greek counts as communication. And one day, when you stand before Julius Caesar, Mark Antony, and half the ancient world, your language is one to just be impressive. They'll be the reason you survive. Your mornings begin with incense, silk robes, and a casual awareness that the lady offering you figs might be trying to dethrone you. Welcome to the daily grind, Ptolemaic style. Court life looks glamorous from a distance, gleaming marble floors, golden statues glinting in the sun, perfumed courtiers drifting around like decorative lilies, but up close, it's more stressful than trying to cancel a subscription you forgot you signed up for. You wake in a bed piled with linen, your skin moisturized with oils that cost more than most people's houses. But the real wake-up call is the quiet reminder ringing in the back of your mind. Someone here has definitely considered poisoning me before breakfast. Let's just start with your morning procession. You don't walk anywhere alone, not because you're pampered, but because walking alone is how people get accidentally pushed off balconies. So you glide through the palace with attendants at your side, incense burners trailing behind you like you're the headliner of an ancient aromatherapy festival. The air is thick with frankincense, myrrh, and the faint but unmistakable scent of political anxiety. First stop. Grooming. Your hair is braided, oiled, perfumed, and arranged in patterns precise enough to qualify as geometry homework. Makeup is applied with the seriousness of a religious ritual. Kohl eyeliner doesn't just highlight your eyes, it sends a message. Yes, I woke up ready to negotiate international grain shipments and undermine my rivals. Your robes are draped and clasped by attendants who whisper updates while they work. Who met with whom? Who argued in the hall? Who looked suspiciously too cheerful today? Then it's time for the morning audience. The throne room echoes with voices speaking Greek, Egyptian, and the universal language of nobles pretending they're not annoyed at each other. Court officials bow, present scrolls, and deliver news. Some are genuinely helpful. Others are here to flatter you so intensely it feels like verbal exfoliation. You sit, nod, and mentally categorize each one. Loyal, neutral, schemer, probable assassin, emotional support priest. Food is everywhere, platters of figs, honey cakes, and bread stuffed with dates. But court etiquette says you shouldn't just start snacking. Every bite is inspected first. The official food taster, who has the single worst job in the ancient world, stares at you with a look that says, Please, just pick something simple today. You politely decline the figs from Lady So-and-so, whose smile is 2 shades too bright to trust. Let's talk about conversations. Court chatter is never just chatter. Every casual greeting hides a test. Every compliment hides a question. A simple, "How was your morning?" really means, which faction are you supporting today? A comment about the weather could be a coded reference to troop movement in Syria. You quickly learn to treat small talk like bomb defusal, cautiously, politely, and with the understanding that one wrong word could make someone decide it's a great day for treason. And of course, the rumours. Court rumours travel faster than a modern text message. Someone sneezes in the West Hall, and within 10 minutes, the East Wing is convinced someone attempted biological warfare. You hear whispers about foreign envoys, grain shortages, astronomical omens, and that one courtier who absolutely cannot sing but insists on doing so anyway. These rumours aren't just gossip, they were intel. You sift through them like you're checking news alerts, trying to figure out which are harmless nonsense and which could spark an actual revolt. Between meetings, priests visit with omens, generals bring military reports, scholars present petitions, and various nobles ask for things they absolutely do not need. You listen, evaluate, and make decisions while keeping your heartbeat steady and your gaze calm. A queen who looks rattled invites chaos. A queen who looks serene even while considering the possibility of her cousin organising a coup commands respect. By afternoon, the palace is buzzing. Delegations arrive, servants hurry, and the gardens outside fill with diplomats pretending to enjoy each other as company while rolling their eyes behind fans. You walk through it all with practiced grace, your sandals tapping softly against stone floors. You are not just observing court life, you're orchestrating it. But here's the real truth about court life. Beneath the perfume and pretty fabrics is a constant game of survival. A scented battlefield, a polite war. Everyone smiles, everyone bows, everyone plots. And you? You float through it all with the calm of someone who knows she's the smartest person in the room, no matter how much incense they burn to distract you. Forget normal arguments about borrowing clothes your siblings fight over the kingdom, not the remote. In most families, the worst-case scenario is someone eating your leftovers or accidentally deleting your saved shows. But in the Ptolemaic dynasty, sibling rivalry isn't about petty annoyance, it's a full-contact sport with generational trauma baked right in. From the moment you and your siblings can toddle across the palace floor, you're not just family, you're competitors, potential threats, future co-rulers or future obstacles to be dramatically eliminated during a tense feast involving too much wine and not nearly enough security. Let us set the scene. You're growing up in a palace so grand, it makes modern luxury hotels look like budget motels. But behind the gold-plated doors and scented halls, your family is a historical soap opera. Every member of your bloodline has ambitions simmering like a pot left on the stove. Everyone has opinions about who should rule Egypt. And no one, absolutely no one, is willing to let something trivial like affection get in the way of power. Your siblings are your earliest playmates, yes, but also your earliest political frenemies. You learn pretty quickly that a shared toy can turn into a shared battleground. One minute you and your brother are stacking little wooden blocks. The next he's building a miniature fortress while eyeing you like he's considering siege warfare. Even your dolls become props in elaborate plots as you all practice the art of ruling in miniature. Let S zoom in on palace meals. In theory, it is a peaceful family gathering. In reality, it is the ancient world S version of an emotionally unstable group project. You sit at the long table with your siblings, each of you watching the others with the intensity of a hawk spotting movement in the desert. Every gesture matters. Every gift is suspicious. Every shared fruit dish feels like a trap. And you start wondering why the bread your brother offered you looks just a little too warm. Too intentional, too politically convenient. Your brothers are especially volatile. They know the throne won't sit empty forever, and the moment your father dies, They're all too aware that royal co-rulership is the Ptolemaic version of saying, let us share until someone snaps. As children, they play fight. As teens, they argue. As adults, they weaponize armies and lawyers and on occasion one another. Sisters aren't exempt. Oh no! While brothers may fight with open force, the sisters of your dynasty have perfected the subtle ways of declaring war. The smile that doesn't reach the eyes, the compliment that's actually an insult, the gift that suggests, here, I wanted you to have this perfume because you obviously need it. But beneath the passive-aggressive elegance lies the same sharp truth. Someone here wants the crown. And if it's not you, they're more than happy to make sure it will never be you. Arguments erupt over everything: titles, inheritance, who gets which wing of the palace, which festival ritual is assigned to which sibling, who the priests favour, who the public favours, and of course, who father seems to like more this month. You quickly discover that sibling bonding time means walking through the palace gardens while casually debating geometry and absolutely evaluating each other's weaknesses. Every once in a while things go quiet, suspiciously quiet, and that S when you know someone is definitely plotting something. Because in a dynasty like yours, silence is the scariest noise. You learn how to read your siblings' moods the way other children learn songs. You understand when the air shifts, when the smiles get tighter, when your older brother begins meeting with generals a little too often, when your sister suddenly becomes very interested in religious rituals and public appearances. These aren't hobbies, they are moves on a chessboard. Through all of this, you train your instincts. The palace becomes your psychological gym. Every interaction is an exercise in strategy, and you get good at it very good. Better than your siblings, even. You begin to see through their intentions before they know their intentions. You anticipate the rise and fall of tension. You learn when to speak, when to stay silent, and when to quietly hide behind a pillar until your older brother's temper has run its course. This is your childhood classroom, your real education, not languages or philosophy or rhetoric, but survival. Because in the Ptolemaic family, rivalry isn't yet about who sits in the front seat of the chariot. It's about who sits on the throne and who gets shoved off of it. At 18, you officially become pharaoh. It sounds glamorous until you realize your co-ruler is your brother, who absolutely wants you fired, exiled, or gently removed from existence. Congratulations, you've made it. You're 18 years old, barely an adult by modern standards, still figuring out the emotional tone of your eyebrows, and suddenly you are Pharaoh of Egypt. A living god, a ruler of millions, a symbol of divine authority, political stability, and extremely heavy headgear. It is a moment that should feel triumphant, majestic, empowering. Instead, it feels like you've just accepted a job where the onboarding packet is 90 warning labels. Because yes, you are Pharaoh, but so is your younger brother Ptolemy themed. And he does not want to share. Let us talk about the coronation. It is beautiful, of course. Priests chanting, golden headdresses gleaming, lotus garlands everywhere. But underneath the ceremony as grandeur is a quiet, humming tension, like someone plugged the entire palace into a cosmic anxiety generator. You stand next to your brother, performing the rituals, holding the sacred objects, smiling for the crowd, all while thinking, this is great. I hope he doesn't try to poison me before lunch. Being co-ruler sounds cooperative on paper. In reality, it's like being told to share a bicycle with someone who keeps insisting they don't need you, the bicycle, or physics. Your brother believes he deserves the throne alone. You believe you deserve the throne alone. The priests are trying not to get involved. And the nobles? Oh, they were thrilled because divided rulers mean opportunities for manipulation. This is the ancient Egyptian version of office politics, except instead of HR, you have armed factions. Your mornings now involve briefings, long, exhausting, absolutely essential briefings about grain shipments, tax levies, temple restorations, Nubian border tensions, and wait, is someone embezzling again? The usual. You listen carefully, ask sharp questions, and quickly establish yourself as the adult in the room. Meanwhile, your brother drifts in late, half listening, looking bored in a way that suggests someone should probably take away his military budget. And, the advisors, they swarm around you both like paparazzi, whispering suggestions, pushing agendas, encouraging rivalry, because it keeps them relevant. Some try to pit you against your brother, others warn you about conspiracies they may or may not have invented over breakfast. Every compliment feels like bait. Every smile feels like a threat. If there were ever a time to speak, 12 languages and read between every possible line is now. Your brother's inner circle grows increasingly bold. They spread rumours that you are too ambitious, too independent, too clever, which, honestly, is accurate but irrelevant. They talk about tradition and order and proper rulership, which is code for please leave. You are ruining our plans. Slowly, you are pushed out of political conversations, then out of decision-making roles, then out of the palace rooms where the real power is discussed. But here's the thing. You're Cleopatra, queen of resilience, princess of strategic eyebrow raises, empress of absolutely not. You don't crumble, you adjust. You hold private audiences with scholars, priests and administrators who trust you. You write letters. You meet quietly with lower-ranking officials who keep the kingdom functioning. You build your own network, small, loyal, tightly knit, a web of people who believe in your leadership more than in your brother's tantrum-based governance. The tension escalates slowly at first, like a pot simmering. Then faster, like someone turned the heat to maximum and walked away. Soon, you're no longer just competing for influence. Your brother's advisors begin actively plotting to remove you, discreetly at first, then publicly, then aggressively, until one day, the threat stops being hypothetical. You're no longer welcome in your own palace. You're pushed out, exiled, essentially by your own co-ruler, forced to flee Alexandria before things become unfortunate, which is the court's gentle euphemism for please run before someone decides you look better as a ghost. But here's the twist. Being exiled doesn't defeat you. It frees you. Because outside the palace walls, you're no longer trapped in sibling drama. You're a displaced queen with a sharper mind than any of them expect, ready to regroup, rebuild, and return stronger. The crown may be shared, but the throne? You intend to reclaim it. You barely blink before you are pushed out of Alexandria entirely. One moment you are queen, the next, you are camping in the desert, wondering if LinkedIn existed in papyrus format. Exile hits you like a sandstorm you didn't see coming. One day you are seated on a golden throne, making decisions about irrigation and temple renovations, and the next you're being gently encouraged to leave the city for your own safety. Ancient political code for they were absolutely planning to yeet you into the Nile if you stay. So you gather what loyal attendants you can, slip out of Alexandria under the cover of diplomatic phrasing, and suddenly you are on the road, dethroned, dehydrated, and deeply annoyed. Let us set the scene. The polished marble floors of the palace are replaced by hot sand that gets everywhere. Your shoes, your robes, your soul. The scent of incense becomes the scent of sweat and whatever camel passed by 20 minutes ago. The gentle murmur of court gossip is swapped for wind whistling across dunes like the world, its most passive-aggressive flute. You look around at your little group of loyal followers, tired, dusty, trying not to look panicked. It feels less like royal exile and more like you accidentally joined a very underfunded study abroad program. The first few nights are the worst. You were sleeping under tents instead of silk canopies, wrapped in blankets that have definitely seen better days. You stare up at the stars thinking, wow, I really miss indoor walls. Your attendants try to comfort you with small luxuries, fragrant oils, bits of cinnamon bread, a comb made from polished wood, but you can tell they're just as shaken as you are. Losing a kingdom in one afternoon tends to do that. Let's talk food. In the palace, you are used to fresh fruit, honeyed pastries, and delicately spiced meats served on silver trays. Out here, you're eating whatever can be carried, cooked, or vaguely chewed without breaking a tooth. Dried dates, flatbread, the occasional goat-based meal, not the worst, but definitely not royal. You sit by the fire nibbling on bread that tastes like disappointment and thinking, I really hope all of this is deductible as a business expense. But exile isn't just miserable, it's enlightening. Without the marble, the jewels, the ceremony, you're forced to look at your situation with a kind of clarity that only comes when life has aggressively knocked you off your pedestal. You're no longer a queen trapped in palace politics. You're a strategist with nothing left to lose. That's a dangerous combination for your enemies, and an oddly empowering one for you. Every day of exile sharpens you. You listen to traders passing through camp, gathering intel about Alexandria. You hear whispers of your brother-esque advisors arguing, making mistakes, losing public favor. You speak with local leaders quietly, respectfully building alliances that aren't based on fear or obligation, but on trust. You're learning the pulse of Egypt beyond the palace walls. And guess what? The people don't love your brother nearly as much as he thinks they do. Your entourage slowly grows. Small bands of supporters, merchants, soldiers, and scholars slip out of Alexandria to join you. They bring news, supplies, and occasionally the kind of gossip that makes exile almost entertaining. A noble tried to pronounce pharaonic and choked on a pomegranate seed. Your brother-esque advisors are arguing about taxes again. Someone attempted to introduce new court fashion, and now half the palace looks like a linen-wrapped pastry. It is not exactly uplifting, but it helps. And then there's the moment, the turning point, when you stop feeling like an exiled queen and start feeling like a queen in waiting. You realize the desert isn't a punishment. It is a reset button. You begin planning your return, not rashly, not dramatically, strategically, carefully. You consider your allies, your rivals, and one very important wild card in the distance. Julius Caesar, fresh in Alexandria, powerful, influential, and absolutely unaware he's about to get swept into your political hurricane. But that's coming later. For now, you sit beneath the desert stars, your breath slow, your expression steady. You may not have a palace, a throne, or even proper bedding at the moment, but you still have your mind, your charisma, your ambition, your connection to Egypt as people. And strangely enough, that more than enough, because exile didn't break you, it recalibrated you, and soon, very soon, Alexandria will remember exactly who you are. You wrap yourself in a rug, yes, a literal rug, and present yourself to Julius Caesar like a historical Amazon delivery. If exile sharpened your strategy, meeting Julius Caesar is the moment you sharpen your showmanship. Alexandria is a boiling pot of factions, soldiers, political tensions, and absolutely terrible communication skills. Caesar has arrived, allegedly to mediate your family drama, but really to chase Pompey into Egypt and clean up Rome's messes. Meanwhile, your brother-esque advisors are doing everything short of launching you into orbit to keep you away from him. Naturally, you decide that subtlety is overrated. Let's set the scene. You're camped near Alexandria, surrounded by loyal followers who are already whispering about how risky this plan is. But risk is your love language. You know that if you approach Caesar openly, your brother's men will stop you. So you choose to do things the Cleopatra way, which is to say, dramatically, creatively, and with maximum flair. You have yourself smuggled across enemy lines rolled up inside a rug. A literal rug. Some historians call it a bed sack, but that ruins the comedy, and honestly, rug sounds funnier. Two attendants carry you like you're a surprise gift. You're tucked inside, trying to breathe quietly, hoping you don't sneeze, and absolutely praying no one drops you down a flight of stairs. It's just not dignified, but history rarely is. You're delivered directly into Caesar's quarters, unwrapped like the world's most unexpected housewarming present. Imagine his face. He's sitting at his desk thinking about troop logistics and Roman taxes, when suddenly a carpet unfurls and a queen tumbles out like a glamorous jack-in-the-box. Julius Caesar, battle-hardened general and future dictator of Rome, is so startled he nearly spills his wine. And that is when you hit him with the full Cleopatra treatment. The charm, the wit, the intelligence sharp enough to slice through tension like a ceremonial knife. You don't grovel, you don't beg, you present your case with calm authority. You explain your exile, your brother's power grab, the injustice, the chaos, the fact that Egypt is heading toward disaster and Rome's interests will be dragged right along with it. Caesar listens, really listens. He sees your ambition, your intelligence, your command of languages, your political instincts. He also sees your courage, a queen willing to risk everything, even humiliation, to fight for her throne. The Roman mind loves boldness. Caesar especially respects it, and he finds you fascinating. But let's not romanticize this moment too quickly. Caesar is not here for love. He's here to stabilize Egypt for Rome's benefit. Still, he recognizes power, even when it arrives wrapped in home decor. A quiet alliance forms political at first, strategic, mutually beneficial. You need Caesar's support to reclaim your throne. He needs you to calm Egypt before it explodes into a war that Rome does not have the bandwidth for. Together, you become something neither of you expected. A force. Of course, this alliance doesn't go unnoticed. Word spreads through the palace like wildfire with a megaphone. Your brother-S advisors panic. They know exactly what it means. Cleopatra has just outmaneuvered them in the most theatrical way imaginable. And now she has Caesar. Meetings grow tense. Soldiers shift nervously. Alexandria buzzes with gossip hotter than the midday desert sun. Some nobles whisper that you bewitched Caesar. Others whisper that Caesar is manipulating you. The truth is far less dramatic. You both understand power, and you both intend to use it. Within days, political lines shift. Negotiations begin. Caesar summons both you and your brother to plead your cases. It goes poorly for your brother, who shows up with all the emotional subtlety of a malfunctioning chariot. Meanwhile, you sit there exuding calm, competence, and, yes, I did arrive in a rug, but please pretend that didn't happen. And slowly, inevitably, Caesar sides with you. Your dramatic entrance becomes the pivot point, the moment history shifts, the moment your exile ends, the moment your brother realizes he's made a very, very large mistake. But you simply smile. Because as bold as your entrance was, your next moves will be even bolder. With Caesar, you form an alliance that's part strategy, part romance, and entirely confusing to senators who have never seen a powerful woman in their lives. It begins quietly well, as quietly as anything can begin when it follows a rug-based entrance. You and Caesar form a partnership founded on sharp minds, shared ambition, and mutual political benefit. But somewhere between late-night strategy sessions and long conversations overlooking the Nile, something else slips in. Not softness. Exactly, you're both far too busy for softness, but something warm, magnetic, gravitational. Something that Rome, in all its stern togas and fragile masculinity, will absolutely not understand. Let's set the stage. Alexandria is still tense armies positioning, factions whispering, nobles wondering whether they should flee or invest in extra security. But in the palace, there's a change in the air. Caesar walks with purpose. You stride beside him, matching his confidence with your own. Every room you enter becomes suddenly brighter, sharper, humming with a subtle electricity that makes courtiers look twice. Your alliance strengthens because you are, quite simply, excellent collaborators. Caesar brings Roman military might, administrative experience, and the kind of ego that could lift pyramids. You bring linguistic brilliance, an intimate understanding of Egyptian politics, and the ability to manipulate a room with nothing but a raised eyebrow. Together, you are unstoppable and terrifying. But the thing about power is that it can be intoxicating. Between political planning sessions, Caesar finds himself genuinely enjoying your company. You challenge him, you keep pace, you make him laugh, which is no small accomplishment for a man who spends most of his life writing about himself in the third person. And you find in him a fascinating mix: ambition, intellect, and the charm of a man who believes he's destined for greatness, and occasionally isn't to wrong. Your first journey together down the Nile is where this dynamic crystallizes. Picture it: a royal barge gliding across calm water, musicians playing softly, lanterns swaying in the evening breeze. You stand beside Caesar, pointing out temples, villages, and sacred sites, explaining Egypt's layered history with the ease of someone born to rule. Caesar listens like a student being privately tutored by the goddess Isis herself. The Nile stretches endlessly before you, a mirror of sky and possibility. Your romance is not a candlelit fantasy. It is an extension of your political brilliance. You are equals in ambition, complementary in strategy, and surprisingly compatible in humor. Caesar has seen battlefields, rebellions, and Rome's Senate, arguably the scariest of the three. But he has never encountered anyone like you. You are not just beautiful, you are formidable. And to you, Caesar isn't just powerful, he is useful, fascinating, and refreshingly straightforward about his goals. Of course, Alexandria notices. The palace buzzes with gossip hotter than a midsummer desert afternoon. Some courtiers swoon at the thought of you two ruling the Mediterranean together. Others clutch their amulets and mutter about omens. Even the palace cats seem unusually judgmental. And Rome. Oh, Rome absolutely loses its mind. Senators receive reports of Caesar's Egyptian distraction and react with the emotional maturity of toddlers denied a snack. They are appalled, outraged, deeply, deeply confused. A woman influencing Caesar, a foreign woman, a queen who speaks multiple languages and makes decisions without male supervision. It is too much. They can't process it. Their monocles would have popped off if monocles existed yet. Meanwhile, you are flourishing. With Caesar S support, your claim to the throne strengthens. Your brother S advisors panic. The public begins whispering your name with renewed hope. You hold court with Caesar at your side, presenting a united front so compelling it is practically cinematic. Through it all, your connection with Caesar grows not in the fragile romantic way storytellers often imagine, but in a steady, strategic, deeply respectful way. You share power, you share vision, you share the kind of chemistry that terrifies empires because it threatens to rewrite the political map. Rome expected you to seduce Caesar with beauty alone, but you seduce him with intelligence, wit, and the subtle joy of finding someone who sees you as an equal. The alliance becomes personal, the personal becomes legendary, and the legendary, well, it's only just beginning. Because soon the entire world will learn that Cleopatra and Caesar together are not merely a romance, they are a geopolitical earthquake waiting to happen. After some battles, a little chaos, and plenty of speeches, you return to Alexandria as the rightful ruler. HR paperwork would have been easier, but hey, victory is victory. Imagine trying to resolve sibling conflict, but instead of arguing over who borrowed whose sandals, armies are involved. That's what reclaiming your throne feels like. You and Caesar stand at the center of a political hurricane, your supporters gathering strength, your brother's faction splintering, and Alexandria holding its breath. waiting to see who ends up on top and who ends up as an awkward footnote in a history scroll. Let us set the scene. Alexandria seethes with tension. Troops march through the streets. Messengers sprint like their lives depend on it because they do. The palace walls echo with shouts, strategizing, and the faint scratching of scribes documenting, well, everything. The whole city feels like a pot about to boil over, and someone has definitely turned the heat up to chaotic. Caesar, meanwhile, is operating at full Roman confidence mode, issuing proclamations, reorganizing the palace guard, and giving speeches that are basically the ancient equivalent of a PowerPoint presentation with too many slides. He explains to Alexandria, in that calm, dramatic Roman way, that stability is essential, that Rome wants peace, and that the rightful ruler you must be restored. The crowd listens because, honestly, Caesar radiates the energy of a substitute teacher who's absolutely not putting up with nonsense today. Your Brother-S advisors try to push back. They call emergency meetings. They shout about tradition, legitimacy, and not letting a woman rule alone, which frankly has been their main argument since day one. They underestimate you. Again. It's almost charming how consistently wrong they are. Then everything escalates. Your Brother-S forces clash with Caesar-S. The fighting surges through the palace district, shields clashing, swords flashing, war cries echoing through courtyards that were literally designed for poetry recitals. Meanwhile, you stay protected within Caesar-S fortified quarters, strategizing with cool, collected precision. You're not just a figurehead. You're directing supply flows, suggesting negotiation tactics, and reminding Caesar, on more than one occasion, that Alexandria-S layout gives you the advantage, not him. And then, in one of those plot twists history absolutely loves, your Brother-S faction makes a catastrophic mistake. They set fire to part of the city, including the docks. The flames spread quickly, scrolls burn, the sky fills with smoke. Caesar-S troops scramble, the locals panic. And your brother? He just made himself deeply unpopular with an entire city of people who rely on trade to eat. This is the turning point. Public support swings toward you, not because anyone suddenly loves monarchy, but because they prefer a queen who doesn't accidentally torch the economy. After several intense clashes, Caesar's seasoned legions overpower your brother's less organized forces. Ptolemy Thulnut attempts to flee across the Nile, but fate intervenes. His boat overturns and he drowns, ending his brief, chaotic attempt at solo rulership. You don't celebrate his death. This is your brother after all, but you do breathe out for the first time in months because the danger has finally passed. Now comes the moment Alexandria has been waiting for. You enter the city not as a fugitive or an exile, but as its rightful queen. Crowds gather, priests chant, lotus petals fall in drifts. You ascend the palace steps with a calm, regal grace that says, "Yes, I survived betrayal, war, and political sabotage. What did you accomplish this week?" Caesar stands beside you, not overshadowing, not claiming credit, but acknowledging your authority. His presence reinforces the legitimacy of your rule, but the victory is yours. You reclaim the throne through resilience, intelligence, and a level of determination that Rome's senators could never hope to understand. Inside the palace, you reclaim your chambers. The familiar scent of incense fills the air. The sunlight hits the marble floors in comforting, crisp lines. Servants bow, relieved. Advisors shift nervously, wondering which of them you'll keep. You take your seat upon the throne, your throne feeling the weight of its history and its promise settle onto your shoulders. This is more than a political win. It is restoration. It is justice. It is proof that Cleopatra does not break under pressure. And yes, technically your boyfriend helped. But don't worry. You'll return the favor soon enough. Being queen is less spa days and more spreadsheets, papyrus sheets, about agriculture, Nile flooding, and grain shipments. Your real superpower? Logistics. You've reclaimed your throne. Wonderful. Truly inspiring. But now comes the part no one glamorizes, running the actual kingdom. There is no montage, no triumphant soundtrack, just a mountain of papyrus documents stacked so high they could qualify as a seventh wonder. Being pharaoh isn't lounging on gold cushions with palm fronds gently waving. It's meetings, endless meetings, meetings about meetings, meetings that should have been letters, meetings where priests argue about omens for so long you start seeing gods in the ceiling tiles. Let's set the tone. The sun rises over Alexandria, warm light spilling across the palace courtyard like honey. Birds chirp, the river glitters. It should feel peaceful. But you wake up and immediately go into crisis management mode. Every morning your attendants hand you the dais reports, and it's always a thrilling mix of the grain output is fluctuating, the harbour taxes need renegotiating, and a temple in Memphis is having a meltdown over a missing sacred bull. Your first meeting of the day usually involves agriculture. Egypt runs on grain the way modern life runs on Wi-Fi. You don't think about it until it has gone, and then everything collapses. So you spend hours poring over irrigation maps, debating the merits of embankment reinforcement, and politely telling the agricultural minister that no, the Nile does not flood according to vibes and wishful thinking. It floods because of seasonal patterns, and you need actual numbers, not mystical optimism. From there, it's on to tax discussions. Taxation in Egypt is a full contact sport. Farmers pay in grain, merchants pay in coin, temples sometimes refuse to pay anything because the gods don't do paperwork, and nobles try to get out of taxes with loopholes that would make modern accountants cry. You sit through presentations from scribes who speak in monotone while pointing to charts drawn with charcoal. You try to stay awake. You fail. Slightly. But eventually you negotiate a tax system that keeps Egypt wealthy without setting peasants on fire with resentment. A delicate balance. Next up, temple diplomacy. If there's one thing you quickly learn, is that Egyptian priests never forget anything. They have lists, they have opinions, they have grievances going back 5 generations. One temple wants more funding for statues. Another wants approval for a festival that involves suspicious amounts of wine. A third is convinced a sacred ibis has been giving them signs about political unrest. You listen patiently, smile gracefully, and sometimes consider whether relocating to a quiet farm in Upper Egypt would be less stressful. And then, oh yes, the harbour meetings. Alexandria S Port is the beating heart of Mediterranean trade, which means you constantly negotiate customs fees, shipping routes. Naval patrols and the occasional merchant who claims his goods were mysteriously lost, even though half the palace saw him trying to bribe the dock workers. Trade keeps Egypt rich, but managing it keeps your blood pressure high. Between all these meetings, you squeeze in time to review legal cases. Ancient Egypt is big on justice ma'at, the concept of cosmic balance and all that. So you hear petitions ranging from land disputes to business disagreements to extremely dramatic family feuds. One farmer claims his neighbour stole his cow. The neighbour claims the cow simply preferred him. You make a ruling that restores cosmic order and prevents bovine-related civil war. Then there's the military briefings. Egypt is stable, yes, but stable in this era means one bad letter away from a potential invasion. You inspect fortifications, analyse border reports, and remind generals not to start anything that will require you to send a strongly worded diplomatic scroll to Rome. By midday, the palace feels like a bustling administrative machine. Courtiers dart around with papyrus bundles. Scribes mutter while calculating grain totals. Clerks shout across corridors about shipment logs. It's like an ancient version of a very overworked office, no cubicles, but plenty of stress. And through all of it, you remain calm, unshaken, focused. because you understand something many rulers don't. The true power of Egypt isn't in its gold or monuments. It is in the systems, the algorithms of the ancient world, the flow of grain, the rise of the Nile, the logistics that keep millions fed and temples supplied and trade routes open. Your ability to command these systems gracefully, intelligently, efficiently is what sets you apart. Anyone can wear a crown. Not everyone can manage a kingdom. By the time evening falls, you have made 20 decisions, settled 2 disputes, saved the tax system from collapse, prevented a priestly uprising, and rewritten half the shipping protocols. You're exhausted. But Egypt is thriving because you are very, very good at this. Tomorrow you'll do it all again. But for now, you breathe in the Nile air, watch the city glow under lantern light and think, spa day soon. Probably, maybe. You stabilize currency, boost trade, and basically turn Egypt into the ancient world's version of a flourishing startup minus the kombucha machines. Running Egypt isn't just about thrones, temples, and dramatic entrances. It's also about making sure the entire kingdom doesn't go financially belly up because someone in the Treasury division thought math is more of a spiritual practice than an exact science. Your economy is wobbling like a 3-legged stool, and if you're going to secure your dynasty, you need to fix it fast, decisively, and with the confidence of someone who absolutely does not have time for nonsense. So you roll up your metaphorical sleeves and enter the world of economic reform, a place filled with grain ledgers, tax charts, trade, agreements, and the kind of financial chaos that could keep an accountant awake for centuries. Let us begin with currency. Egypt's monetary system has been suffering from inflation, inconsistent coin quality, and the occasional counterfeiter who thinks using slightly wonky metal will go unnoticed. It does not. You notice immediately. Everyone notices. Even the palace cats notice. So you do something radical. You issue new, standardized coins with high silver content, clear markings, and enough legitimacy to calm merchants from Alexandria to the Red Sea. Ancient minting becomes your personal side quest, and you supervise it with an attention to detail that would terrify a modern auditor. Then there's trade. Egypt is a Mediterranean powerhouse, grain-rich, strategically located and armed with Alexandria's world-famous port. But the system is clogged with corrupt officials who treat customs fees like a suggestion and smuggling like an optional extra service. You streamline the process, cut out the middlemen entirely too pleased with themselves, and reorganize harbour administration so that goods actually arrive where they're supposed to. Merchants cheer, sailors breathe easier, and the harbour master stops having daily stress nosebleeds. Your reforms ripple outward. You negotiate new trade partnerships across the Mediterranean, Cyprus, Syria, Judea, and various Aegean islands so small they are practically glorified rocks. You charm foreign envoys with diplomacy and mathematics. Yes, mathematics. Because when you tell someone their entire trade route could be optimized with better scheduling and fewer bribes, they tend to listen. You make Egypt not just stable, not just functional, but profitable. Wealth flows in like Nile water during flood season. Grain exports soar. Taxes stabilize. More goods pass through Alexandria than ever before. Anyone walking through the royal treasury can practically hear the ka-ching of ancient prosperity. But the reforms don't stop at trade and money. You also focus on infrastructure roads, canals, river ports. Egypt runs on the Nile, and the Nile runs on careful planning. You direct engineers to deepen channels, repair embankments, and maintain irrigation systems. Floods become less destructive. Harvests become more predictable. Farmers across the kingdom whisper your name with gratitude because for once, the government is actually helping instead of wandering around muttering about omens. And speaking of farmers, your tax reforms are legendary. You replace arbitrary levies and local corruption with standardized assessments based on land quality and crop yield. It is fair. It is reasonable. It is so efficient that peasants begin making offerings to the gods in your name. They've never had a ruler who cared about math and mercy. Of course, not everyone loves your reforms. Nobles grumble because they can no longer smuggle entire boatloads of spices without paying taxes. Priests complain because standardizing temple finances means they can claim mysterious divine expenses anymore. Even some of your advisors panic because they've never seen so many numbers in their lives. But you thrive in the flow of it all. You meet with financial scribes who present enough papyrus spreadsheets to wallpaper every wall in the palace. You analyze grain reserves like a strategist staring down a battlefield. You talk with merchants, sailors, farmers, engineers, people who actually understand how things work, not just how they're supposed to work in theory. And slowly, the pieces click into place. Egypt stabilizes, then grows, then shines. By the time your reforms fully take hold, Egypt is no longer a kingdom holding on to past glories. It is the beating economic heart of the ancient Mediterranean, a marketplace of ideas, wealth, and trade routes. A nation where logistics isn't a chore, it's your superpower. You reinvented an entire economy using nothing but intelligence, discipline, and pure, unfiltered Cleopatra energy. No kombucha machines required. You commission temples, statues, and giant architecture projects that tell the world, yes, I'm fabulous, and also politically competent. There comes a moment in every great ruler's life when they look around their kingdom and think, this needs more giant stone things with my face on them. And for you, that moment arrives promptly after stabilizing the economy and reminding everyone in both Egypt and Rome that you're not just a queen, you're a force of nature wrapped in linen and eyeliner. Because here's the truth, ruling Egypt isn't just about policies and papyrus. It's about legacy. It's about communicating power in ways that even your enemies have to acknowledge. And in the ancient world, nothing says I'm thriving like large-scale construction projects that require entire teams of architects, thousands of workers, and enough limestone to build a very fancy mountain. So you dive into the world of royal building initiatives, part public service, part artistic expression, part subtle middle finger to anyone who doubts your capability. Let us set the stage. Alexandria gleams beneath the sun, its skyline shaped by the massive Pharos lighthouse, a wonder of the world that basically screams, "Welcome to the greatest city ever built." Try not to be intimidated, but you are not content to simply bask in old glories. You begin commissioning temples across Egypt, each dedicated to gods both old and new, while subtly weaving your presence into their iconography. If a wall needs decorating, it now features Cleopatra making offerings to Isis. A statue needs sculpting, it mysteriously resembles you, only slightly taller. A temple frieze needs renovation. Oh, look, there you are, carved beside deities like you're casually part of the Divine Family group chat. You are not just building, you are branding. One of your favourite projects is the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. It is beautiful, ornate, and filled with astronomical ceilings that modern tourists would absolutely risk spraining their necks to look at. There, among celestial symbols and columns as tall as ambition itself, you have yourself and Caesarion carved as pharaohs making offerings. A visual mic drop, if you will. Of course, while Egypt celebrates your architectural flair, Rome watches with the emotional stability of a cat encountering a cucumber. Senators receive reports of your building programs and become deeply, irrationally offended. How dare a foreign queen display this level of authority? How dare she carve her image into temples? How dare she govern effectively and look fabulous doing it? Their outrage only encourages you. You expand your efforts beyond temples. You commission shrines, public works, monuments, and refurbishments of older structures that have seen better centuries. You repair harbour facilities to support your booming trade network. You fund improvements to irrigation channels so farmers can breathe easier. You invest in public granaries that ensure no one starves during bad harvests. The people love you for it because, unlike half the rulers in this era, you don't build monuments instead of caring for your people. You build both. Architecture becomes another language for you, one that speaks of stability, wealth, devotion, and confidence. And it is a language that everyone understands, whether or not they speak Egyptian, Greek, or Roman, senator having a meltdown. And then there are the statues, massive, finely carved works placed in sacred spaces, bustling plazas, temple courtyards. They depict you in various traditional Egyptian poses, wearing the double crown, offering incense to gods, standing tall with poise and unmistakable presence. These aren't vanity projects. They're political messages carved in stone, statements of continuity, signals of authority, ways of reinforcing your legitimacy not through violence or fear, but through artistry and reverence. Workers across Egypt begin recognizing your silhouette even in the form of a sketch. They know it instantly. The regal posture, the divine symbols, the unmistakable Cleopatra profile. Artisans praise your patronage. Architects admire your vision. Labourers appreciate the steady stream of work funded by your treasury. And through all of this, Rome watches, judges, misinterprets, panics. The more they hear about your monumental projects, the more they convince themselves that you're plotting some grand takeover, that you're turning Egypt into a powerhouse capable of rivaling Rome, that you're planning to spread your influence across the Mediterranean with statues, temples, and competent governance. Meanwhile, you're simply doing what any brilliant ruler does, ensuring your kingdom thrives, your legacy endures, and your message is heard long after your footsteps fade from these halls. You build because it matters. You build because Egypt deserves greatness. You build because stone does not forget. And let us be honest, you also build because nothing infuriates Rome quite like a successful woman with good architectural taste. Your daily routine includes scented oils, diplomatic meetings, and trying to maintain inner peace while someone mispronounces your name for the third time. Life at your court is luxurious, yes, but it's also the ancient equivalent of working in an open-plan office where everyone wears perfume so strong it could stun a war elephant. The palace is magnificent. Gleaming marble columns, polished floors, fountains murmuring like they were judging everyone quietly. But behind all the beauty lies a never-ending assembly line of meetings, announcements, and nobles who somehow always want something from you. Your mornings begin with scented oils warming on bronze trays. Attendants gently brush your hair, braid it, and then shed actual tears if one strand dares to rebel. You're dressed in linen so soft it feels like being hugged by a cloud, though a cloud that occasionally scratches because ancient fabric softener did not exist. You choose your jewellery carefully, not too heavy. You need your neck functional, but regal enough to communicate I am awake and fully capable of replacing you if necessary. Then you step into the reception hall, a cavernous, echoing space where incense curls through the air and nobles gather like decorative potted plants, each trying to outpose the others. The moment you walk in, everyone bows and murmurs, "Your Majesty," except for that one official who still insists on calling you Cleopatra, and you do everything in your power not to banish him to the library basement forever. Your first audience of the day is with diplomats. They shuffle forward, draped in embroidered robes that seem specifically designed to trip them. They offer gifts, ivory boxes, jars of rare honey, small sculptures of gods you've never heard of, and then launch into long speeches filled with compliments so extravagant they would embarrass a playwright. You nod serenely, thankful that your extensive languages training prepared you for this moment, because some of these men are attempting Egyptian with the energy of someone gargling marbles. Then come the bureaucrats, Ah, yes. The beating heart of all ancient suffering. They arrive clutching scrolls like they are life preservers. They update you on tax records, land disputes, census data, grain shipments, temple requests, border patrol funding, trade manifests, and that one fisherman who insists a crocodile is stealing from his nets. You sit on your throne, listening calmly, while your inner voice is doing deep breathing exercises. Sometimes you wonder if anyone in court has ever solved a problem without forming a committee. Sometimes you wonder why every minor issue requires 4 witnesses, 3 scribes, and a priest who insists on reading an omen first. Sometimes you wonder if, maybe, just maybe you should install a suggestion box. But diplomacy isn't all paperwork and scroll fragments. Court life involves personalities. Oh, so many personalities. There is the overly enthusiastic priest who bombards you with mythological trivia no one asked for. The noblewoman who compliments your jewellery while plotting whether she can replicate it at home. The general who speaks loudly enough to be heard across the Mediterranean. The scholar who forgets what he is talking about mid-sentence and then starts over again from the beginning. Every day requires patience, mountains of patience, and grace, and a tolerance for incense that borders on superhuman. Between meetings, you escape to the palace gardens. Lotus pools shimmer, date palms rustle. The sunlight reflects off the water in calm, glittering patterns. Here, you can breathe. Here, you can think. Here, no one is asking you to approve a trade request or resolve a debate between 2 nobles who both claim ownership of the same donkey. But peace is temporary. Soon, your attendants whisk you off to temple rituals where you offer incense to the gods, smile for the priests, and perform the sacred acts that reinforce your legitimacy as pharaoh. You stand before altars, the scent of burning resin drifting like a quiet prayer, knowing that every gesture is being scrutinized for divine symbolism. By late afternoon, you're back in the council chamber, another meeting, another negotiation, another noble insisting he should receive a larger estate because the gods favor him, even though the gods have made no such announcement. You answer calmly, decisively. You remind them who rules Egypt. Evenings bring feasts, lavish spreads of figs, roasted meats, wine, and conversation that oscillates between entertaining, tense, and mind-numbingly tedious. You smile when appropriate, laugh when necessary, and sip wine strategically to maintain sanity. At the end of the day, you retire to your private chambers. You remove your jewellery, wash away the incense smoke clinging to your hair, and finally enjoy a moment that is yours alone. Court life is beautiful. Court life is exhausting. Court life is a daily test of diplomacy, endurance, and the ability to maintain a serene expression while someone mispronounces your name for the 4th time that week. But you handle it all with effortless grace. Because you're a Cleopatra and the court survives because you do. You give birth to Caesarion, your son with Julius Caesar, and instantly every political faction within 300 miles has an opinion about it. Becoming a mother in the ancient world is already a monumental event. Becoming a mother while ruling Egypt is even more intense. But becoming a mother while Rome watches you like a hawk monitoring suspicious activity, that's a whole new level of stress, like trying to raise a baby while an entire empire stands over your shoulder saying, "Interesting. And what does this mean politically?" Your pregnancy is no quiet affair. The moment Alexandria notices you're expecting, the entire kingdom lights up with speculation. Priests interpret omens, nobles whisper, servants try not to stare but absolutely stare. Meanwhile, Roman envoys send frantic letters home using language suspiciously close to "Caesar has a what now?" Because the idea of Caesar fathering a child with a foreign queen is enough to make senators clutch their pearls and their political ambitions. When Caesarion is born, Alexandria erupts in celebration. The Nile seems to shimmer brighter. Temples ring with songs. Crowds pour into the streets to honor the arrival of a child believed to carry not just royal blood, but divine favor. Egypt loves symbolic continuity, and a son of Cleopatra and Caesar is symbolism on overdrive. Rome reacts like someone just spilled wine on their best toga. Confusion, panic, denial, a full-blown identity crisis. Senators argue endlessly. Is the child legitimate? Does Caesar plan to name him heir? Is this the beginning of a new dynasty? One senator reportedly shouted, "This is exactly why we don't let generals travel." Another fainted, or possibly pretended to faint. It is always hard to tell. But while the political world hyperventilates, you focus on the personal world, raising your child. Motherhood softens none of your responsibilities. If anything, it adds another layer to your already towering pyramid of duties. You hold court with Caesarion nestled in your arms, scribes taking notes while he naps. You review grain reports while rocking him gently. You attend rituals with him swaddled in linen, tiny fingers reaching toward golden statues. You love him fiercely because he is not just a symbol, not just a political chess piece. He is your son, your legacy, your hope for Egypt's future. And yet, every moment with him is tinged with awareness. Rome is watching. The world is watching. Caesarion is more than a baby. He's a statement, a potential shift in the balance of power, a child whose mere existence causes senators to sweat through their tunics. Your attendants adore him. They fawn over his curls, his wide eyes, the way he seems to regard the world with suspicious intelligence. Priests proclaim that the gods smile on him, interpreting his hiccups as divine blessings. Meanwhile, you make sure he's raised in both Egyptian and Greek traditions, educated, loved, protected, and surrounded by people who understand the magnitude of his future. You're determined to make him more than a political prop. You want him to know the real Egypt, not just its throne rooms, but its people, its languages, its temples, its festivals. You take him on processions along the Nile, letting him see the fertile fields and bustling villages. Farmers bow as you pass, blessing you both. It's humbling, grounding, and strangely peaceful. But even in these gentle moments, the pressure never fully releases. Envoys from Rome arrive regularly, eyes sharp, trying to gauge how Caesar feels about all this. They observe Caesarion with thin smiles. They ask pointed questions. They write letters home filled with wild theories, each one more dramatic than the last. And you meet their gaze calmly. Because while Rome gossips and speculates, Egypt knows the truth. Cleopatra's son is the future, and you will shape that future with care, intention, and all the strategic brilliance you possess. Motherhood in your world is a balancing act between love and politics, between tenderness and statecraft, between the private bond you cherish and the public expectations that never stop growing. But you handle it with grace, strength, and the quiet, steady certainty that your son will inherit not just a throne, but a legacy. Because Caesarion is more than a child born into power. He is the bridge between worlds, and you, his mother, are the one guiding him across it. News arrives that Caesar has been stabbed by half the Senate. You do not take this personally, but Rome is now a flaming trash pile of political chaos. The news hits Alexandria like a sandstorm, sudden, abrasive, and deeply inconvenient. You're in the middle of a perfectly normal day reviewing tax protocols, attending temple rites, trying to convince a nobleman that no, he does not need funding for a floating festival palace, when a breathless messenger arrives, pale as a limestone statue. He kneels, hands trembling, and delivers the words that ripple through history. Julius Caesar has been killed. You blink, slowly, gracefully. because even as your stomach drops and your heart tightens, you are Cleopatra, Queen of Egypt, and emotional outbursts are for lesser mortals. But inside, your brain is doing somersaults. Caesar, your ally, your partner, the father of your son, has been stabbed on the floor of the Senate by a mob of toga-clad backstabbers who apparently misinterpreted Republican values as group homicide. You dismiss the messenger gently, then step into your private chambers, where you allow yourself one deep, world-shaking exhale. The kind where your whole body goes still, and you suddenly understand that everything just changed. Let's be clear. You don't take Caesar's death personally. You didn't expect Rome to adore your partnership. Romans have the emotional consistency of a toddler in a thunderstorm. Excitable, dramatic, and prone to tearing things apart for no reason. But the assassination is more than a tragedy. It is a geopolitical nightmare wrapped in a disaster burrito. Within hours, Alexandria is buzzing. Advisors whisper, priests fret, nobles speculate wildly. Their theories ranging from the gods are displeased to Rome, its leadership has melted. Honestly, the second one isn't far off. You retreat to review the crisis. And yes, it is absolutely a crisis. Rome is suddenly leaderless, divided, and very much on fire politically speaking. Mark Antony is trying to rally Caesar's supporters. The assassins are pretending they restored freedom. The Senate is panicking, the people are rioting, and all of them are loudly arguing about what to do next with the enthusiasm of a dysfunctional family screaming over dinner. And in the middle of all this, your son, your heir, Caesar S. Last, living legacy. You know Rome. You know its jealousies, its fragilities, its deep-seated terror of powerful women and powerful foreigners. And now you have a child who is both. So you move quickly. You strengthen Egypt's borders, increase guards around the palace, expand diplomatic ties. You instruct scribes to prepare statements of mourning that are solemn, yet politically neutral, because you're grieving, yes, but no one in Rome needs extra fuel for conspiracy theories. You gather your advisors in the strategy chamber. The air smells faintly of papyrus and panic. They ask whether Caesar named Caesarion as his heir. You know he didn't formally declare it, thanks to Roman laws designed by people who really hated clarity. But you also know your son is Caesar's child visibly, undeniably, unmistakably. It is written in his face, in his lineage, in the way people look at him with awe. But this is not something to broadcast. Not yet. Rome is too volatile, too unpredictable, too ready to snap like an overworn bowstring. You must tread carefully, for Egypt's sake and your own. Caesar's death does not break you, but it forces you to shift into a new mode: survival, strategy, and subtlety. You monitor Rome's political earthquake from afar. You read every letter, every report, every rumor. Antony and Octavian begin their uneasy, brittle dance of cooperation and rivalry. The Senate flails. The assassins flee or double down on their ideological speeches. It is a mess, an entertaining mess, if you weren't living inside the blast radius. Back in Egypt, people mourn with respect and distance. You lead ceremonies honoring Caesar's memory, your face serene even as your heart feels heavy. You think of your time together, your alliance, your victories, your son, but you don't have the luxury of grief. Not yet. Too much depends on your clarity. At night, you walk the quiet corridors of the palace, stopping at Caesarion's chamber. He sleeps peacefully, unaware that the world around him is fractured. You watch him and make a silent vow. No matter what storms Rome unleashes, you will protect him. You will protect Egypt. You will navigate this chaos with the same brilliance that carried you through exile, war, and political upheaval. Caesar's assassination was Rome's tragedy. But it's your turning point. The world is shifting, and so must you. Mark Antony invites you to meet him, and you show up on a gilded barge like you're headlining an ancient Vegas show. Subtlety is for amateurs. Rome is wobbling like a freshly kneaded loaf of bread, soft, unstable, and one wrong poke away from collapsing. Caesar is gone, Octavian is rising, and the political chessboard is rearranging itself faster than anyone can keep up. And right in the middle of this power vacuum stands Mark Antony, charismatic, theatrical, chaotic, in the way only a man with too much confidence and too many military victories can be. He needs allies. You need influence. Egypt needs security. So when he summons you to Tarsus ostensibly to explain your political alignment, but actually to evaluate whether you're friend, threat, or future co-star, you know exactly what to do. You do not arrive quietly. You do not show up humbly. You do not crawl into a rug this time. You sail in on a floating spectacle so dazzling it makes entire crowds forget how governments work. Let's set the scene. You commission a royal barge, not just any barge, but a masterpiece of excessive beauty. Gold gleams on its edges. Purple sails billow dramatically. Silver oars catch sunlight like they've been personally blessed by Ra. Incense wafts across the river, trailing behind you in perfumed clouds. Musicians play soft melodies. Attendants scatter flower petals. The whole vessel glows like the universe decided to place a physical embodiment of main character energy on water. When you arrive in Tarsus, people don't whisper. They stare, mouths open, eyes wide. It's as if Beyoncé just appeared at a medieval county fair. And Mark Antony? He is enchanted. He expected a queen desperate for support. Instead, he gets a queen who owns the room, the river, the narrative, and probably his emotional stability. You walk onto shore with calm confidence, every movement deliberate, every gesture saying, I am Cleopatra, ruler of Egypt. I am not here to beg. I am here to negotiate. Antony greets you with a grin wide enough to be seen from space. His soldiers stare, completely unable to process how a political meeting turned into the world's first immersive theatre production. Roman officers whisper that you've bewitched him. Roman officers are always saying that whenever a powerful woman enters the chat. But here is the truth. You and Antony Donti need enchantment. You understand each other. You're both dramatic, magnetic, and ambitious in ways that make other politicians sweat. Where Caesar admired you with intellectual fascination, Antony meets you with equal energy matching your wit, your humor, your strategic instinct. The two of you talk for hours, days. Your conversations move from diplomacy to philosophy to military logistics to jokes that make the attendants look at the floor so they don't smile. Antony brings stories of battles, alliances, and Roman chaos. You bring insight into Egypt's resources, politics, and the precarious balance of power in the East. Together you map out a partnership, one built on mutual gain and undeniable chemistry. And the chemistry is real, not exaggerated, not invented by playwrights or Hollywood. Antony is bold. You're brilliant. You challenge him. He delights in it. He doesn't fear your intelligence. He adores it. With him, you can be yourself, clever, strategic, sharp, warm, funny. He listens to you, something few men in your political orbit ever manage, but you are still Cleopatra. This is not a romance blinded by passion. This is a calculated alliance wrapped in charm. You agree to support him politically and financially. He agrees to confirm your legitimacy, protect Egypt's sovereignty, and help secure your dynastic goals. It is a partnership that makes both your enemies uneasy always a good sign. When you sail back to Egypt, you do so with a sense of renewed strength. The Nile welcomes you. Your people cheer. Your advisors breathe sighs of relief. Because they know what this alliance means. You're no longer reacting to Rome's chaos. You're shaping it, directing it, riding its waves like the world's most glamorous surfer. Antony returns to Rome singing your praises loudly. dramatically, too enthusiastically for the comfort of his colleagues. They roll their eyes, they mutter warnings, they write anxious letters, they prepare for trouble, and they rib right too. Because Cleopatra and Mark Antony together, that is a political force unlike anything the ancient world has ever seen. Two brilliant theatrical people walking into a power vacuum. What could possibly go wrong? Being queen is less spa days and more spreadsheets, papyrus sheets, about agriculture, Nile flooding, and grain shipments. Your real superpower? Logistics. You've reclaimed your throne. Wonderful, truly inspiring. But now comes the part no one glamorizes, running the actual kingdom. There is no montage, no triumphant soundtrack, just a mountain of papyrus documents stacked so high they could qualify as a seventh wonder. Being pharaoh isn't lounging on gold cushions with palm fronds gently waving. It's meetings, endless meetings, meetings about meetings, meetings that should have been letters, meetings where priests argue about omens for so long you start seeing gods in the ceiling tiles. Let's set the tone. The sun rises over Alexandria, warm light spilling across the palace courtyard like honey. Birds chirp, the river glitters, it should feel peaceful. But you wake up and immediately go into crisis management mode. Every morning your attendants hand you the dais reports, and it's always a thrilling mix of the grain output is fluctuating, the harbour taxes need renegotiating, and a temple in Memphis is having a meltdown over a missing sacred bull. Your first meeting of the day usually involves agriculture. Egypt runs on grain the way modern life runs on Wi-Fi. You don't think about it until it has gone, and then everything collapses. So you spend hours poring over irrigation maps, debating the merits of embankment reinforcement, and politely telling the agricultural minister that no, the Nile does not flood according to vibes and wishful thinking. It floods because of seasonal patterns, and you need actual numbers, not mystical optimism. From there, it's on to tax discussions. Taxation in Egypt is a full contact sport. Farmers pay in grain, merchants pay in coin, temples sometimes refuse to pay anything because the gods don't do paperwork, and nobles try to get out of taxes with loopholes that would make modern accountants cry. You sit through presentations from scribes who speak in monotone while pointing to charts drawn with charcoal. You try to stay awake. You fail. Slightly. But eventually you negotiate a tax system that keeps Egypt wealthy without setting peasants on fire with resentment. A delicate balance. Next up, temple diplomacy. If there's one thing you quickly learn, is that Egyptian priests never forget anything. They have lists, they have opinions, they have grievances going back 5 generations. One temple wants more funding for statues, another wants approval for a festival that involves suspicious amounts of wine, a third is convinced a sacred ibis has been giving them signs about political unrest. You listen patiently, smile gracefully, and sometimes consider whether relocating to a quiet farm in Upper Egypt would be less stressful. And then, oh yes, the harbour meetings. Alexandria S Port is the beating heart of Mediterranean trade, which means you constantly negotiate customs fees, shipping routes. Naval patrols and the occasional merchant who claims his goods were mysteriously lost, even though half the palace saw him trying to bribe the dock workers. Trade keeps Egypt rich, but managing it keeps your blood pressure high. Between all these meetings, you squeeze in time to review legal cases. Ancient Egypt is big on justice ma'at, the concept of cosmic balance and all that. So you hear petitions ranging from land disputes to business disagreements to extremely dramatic family feuds. One farmer claims his neighbour stole his cow. The neighbour claims the cow simply preferred him. You make a ruling that restores cosmic order and prevents bovine-related civil war. Then there's the military briefings. Egypt is stable, yes, but stable in this era means one bad letter away from a potential invasion. You inspect fortifications, analyse border reports, and remind generals not to start anything that will require you to send a strongly worded diplomatic scroll to Rome. By midday, the palace feels like a bustling administrative machine. Courtiers dart around with papyrus bundles, scribes mutter while calculating grain totals. Clerks shout across corridors about shipment logs. It's like an ancient version of a very overworked office, no cubicles, but plenty of stress. And through all of it, you remain calm, unshaken, focused, because you understand something many rulers don't. The true power of Egypt isn't in its gold or monuments. It is in the systems, the algorithms of the ancient world, the flow of grain, the rise of the Nile, the logistics that keep millions fed and temples supplied and trade routes open. Your ability to command these systems gracefully, intelligently, efficiently is what sets you apart. Anyone can wear a crown. Not everyone can manage a kingdom. By the time evening falls, you have made 20 decisions, settled 2 disputes, saved the tax system from collapse, prevented a priestly uprising, and rewritten half the shipping protocols. You're exhausted. But Egypt is thriving because you are very, very good at this. Tomorrow you'll do it all again. But for now, you breathe in the Nile air, watch the city glow under lantern light and think, spa day soon. Probably, maybe. You stabilize currency, boost trade, and basically turn Egypt into the ancient world's version of a flourishing startup minus the kombucha machines. Running Egypt isn't just about thrones, temples, and dramatic entrances. It's also about making sure the entire kingdom doesn't go financially belly up because someone in the Treasury division thought math is more of a spiritual practice than an exact science. Your economy is wobbling like a 3-legged stool, and if you're going to secure your dynasty, you need to fix it fast, decisively, and with the confidence of someone who absolutely does not have time for nonsense. So you roll up your metaphorical sleeves and enter the world of economic reform, a place filled with grain ledgers, tax charts, trade, agreements, and the kind of financial chaos that could keep an accountant awake for centuries. Let us begin with currency. Egypt's monetary system has been suffering from inflation, inconsistent coin quality, and the occasional counterfeiter who thinks using slightly wonky metal will go unnoticed. It does not. You notice immediately. Everyone notices. Even the palace cats notice. So you do something radical. You issue new, standardized coins with high silver content, clear markings, and enough legitimacy to calm merchants from Alexandria to the Red Sea. Ancient minting becomes your personal side quest, and you supervise it with an attention to detail that would terrify a modern auditor. Then there's trade. Egypt is a Mediterranean powerhouse, grain-rich, strategically located and armed with Alexandria's world-famous port. But the system is clogged with corrupt officials who treat customs fees like a suggestion and smuggling like an optional extra service. You streamline the process, cut out the middlemen entirely too pleased with themselves, and reorganize harbour administration so that goods actually arrive where they're supposed to. Merchants cheer, sailors breathe easier, and the harbour master stops having daily stress nosebleeds. Your reforms ripple outward. You negotiate new trade partnerships across the Mediterranean, Cyprus, Syria, Judea, and various Aegean islands so small they are practically glorified rocks. You charm foreign envoys with diplomacy and mathematics. Yes, mathematics. Because when you tell someone their entire trade route could be optimized with better scheduling and fewer bribes, they tend to listen. You make Egypt not just stable, not just functional, but profitable. Wealth flows in like Nile water during flood season. Grain exports soar. Taxes stabilize. More goods pass through Alexandria than ever before. Anyone walking through the royal treasury can practically hear the ka-ching of ancient prosperity. But the reforms don't stop at trade and money. You also focus on infrastructure roads, canals, river ports. Egypt runs on the Nile and the Nile runs on careful planning. You direct engineers to deepen channels, repair embankments, and maintain irrigation systems. Floods become less destructive. Harvests become more predictable. Farmers across the kingdom whisper your name with gratitude because for once, the government is actually helping instead of wandering around muttering about omens. And speaking of farmers, your tax reforms are legendary. You replace arbitrary levies and local corruption with standardized assessments based on land quality and crop yield. It's fair. It's reasonable. It's so efficient that peasants begin making offerings to the gods in your name. They've never had a ruler who cared about math and mercy. Of course, not everyone loves your reforms. Nobles grumble because they can no longer smuggle entire boatloads of spices without paying taxes. Priests complain because standardizing temple finances means they can claim mysterious divine expenses anymore. Even some of your advisors panic because they've never seen so many numbers in their lives. But you thrive in the flow of it all. You meet with financial scribes who present enough papyrus spreadsheets to wallpaper every wall in the palace. You analyze grain reserves like a strategist staring down a battlefield. You talk with merchants, sailors, farmers, engineers, people who actually understand how things work, not just how they're supposed to work in theory. And slowly, the pieces click into place. Egypt stabilizes, then grows, then shines. By the time your reforms fully take hold, Egypt is no longer a kingdom holding on to past glories. It is the beating economic heart of the ancient Mediterranean, a marketplace of ideas, wealth, and trade routes. A nation where logistics isn't a chore, it's your superpower. You reinvented an entire economy using nothing but intelligence, discipline, and pure, unfiltered Cleopatra energy. No kombucha machines required. You commission temples, statues, and giant architecture projects that tell the world, yes, I'm fabulous, and also politically competent. There comes a moment in every great ruler's life when they look around their kingdom and think, this needs more giant stone things with my face on them. And for you, that moment arrives promptly after stabilizing the economy and reminding everyone in both Egypt and Rome that you're not just a queen, you're a force of nature wrapped in linen and eyeliner. Because here's the truth, ruling Egypt isn't just about policies and papyrus. It's about legacy. It's about communicating power in ways that even your enemies have to acknowledge. And in the ancient world, nothing says I'm thriving like large-scale construction projects that require entire teams of architects, thousands of workers, and enough limestone to build a very fancy mountain. So you dive into the world of royal building initiatives, part public service, part artistic expression, part subtle middle finger to anyone who doubts your capability. Let us set the stage. Alexandria gleams beneath the sun, its skyline shaped by the massive Pharos lighthouse, a wonder of the world that basically screams, welcome to the greatest city ever built. Try not to be intimidated, but you are not content to simply bask in old glories. You begin commissioning temples across Egypt, each dedicated to gods both old and new, while subtly weaving your presence into their iconography. If a wall needs decorating, it now features Cleopatra making offerings to Isis. A statue needs sculpting, it mysteriously resembles you, only slightly taller. A temple frieze needs renovation. Oh, look, there you are, carved beside deities like you were casually part of the Divine Family group chat. You are not just building, you are branding. One of your favourite projects is the Temple of Hathor at Dendera. It is beautiful, ornate, and filled with astronomical ceilings that modern tourists would absolutely risk spraining their necks to look at. There, among celestial symbols and columns as tall as ambition itself, you have yourself and Caesarion carved as pharaohs making offerings. A visual mic drop, if you will. Of course, while Egypt celebrates your architectural flair, Rome watches with the emotional stability of a cat encountering a cucumber. Senators receive reports of your building programs and become deeply, irrationally offended. How dare a foreign queen display this level of authority? How dare she carve her image into temples? How dare she govern effectively and look fabulous doing it? Their outrage only encourages you. You expand your efforts beyond temples. You commission shrines, public works, monuments, and refurbishments of older structures that have seen better centuries. You repair harbour facilities to support your booming trade network. You fund improvements to irrigation channels so farmers can breathe easier. You invest in public granaries that ensure no one starves during bad harvests. The people love you for it, because unlike half the rulers in this era, you don't build monuments instead of caring for your people. You build both. Architecture becomes another language for you, one that speaks of stability, wealth, devotion, and confidence. And it is a language that everyone understands, whether or not they speak Egyptian, Greek, or Roman, senator having a meltdown. And then there are the statues, massive, finely carved works placed in sacred spaces, bustling plazas, temple courtyards. They depict you in various traditional Egyptian poses wearing the double crown, offering incense to gods standing tall with poise and unmistakable presence. These aren't vanity projects. There are political messages carved in stone, statements of continuity, signals of authority, ways of reinforcing your legitimacy not through violence or fear, but through artistry and reverence. Workers across Egypt begin recognizing your silhouette even in the form of a sketch. They know it instantly. The regal posture, the divine symbols, the unmistakable Cleopatra profile. Artisans praise your patronage. Architects admire your vision. Labourers appreciate the steady stream of work funded by your treasury. And through all of this, Rome watches, judges, misinterprets, panics. The more they hear about your monumental projects, the more they convince themselves that you're plotting some grand takeover, that you're turning Egypt into a powerhouse capable of rivaling Rome, that you're planning to spread your influence across the Mediterranean with statues, temples, and competent governance. Meanwhile, you're simply doing what any brilliant ruler does, ensuring your kingdom thrives, your legacy endures, and your message is heard long after your footsteps fade from these halls. You build because it matters. You build because Egypt deserves greatness. You build because stone does not forget. And let us be honest, you also build because nothing infuriates Rome quite like a successful woman with good architectural taste. Together you govern territories, raise armies, and generally terrify everyone who thought Cleopatra was just a pretty face with eyeliner. Once your alliance with Antony solidifies, something remarkable happens. The political landscape of the Eastern Mediterranean shifts like a sand dune in a windstorm, not collapsing, just rearranging itself around the gravitational pull of two very charismatic, very determined leaders. You and Antony become the power couple of the ancient world, minus the matching outfits but with the matching ambition levels. You don't just flirt, you don't just strategize, you govern together. Let S set the scene. Antony takes command of Rome's eastern provinces, and instead of treating the job like a chore, he treats it like a chance to reinvent the empire's regional strategy. You, meanwhile, step in with Egyptian resources, political expertise, impeccable instincts, and a logistical brain so powerful it should honestly qualify as a natural resource. The two of you drill into the work like co-founders who actually enjoy the meetings. You coordinate troop movements, you reorganize regional tax structures, you negotiate with client kings who suddenly realize they're dealing not with Rome alone, but with a dynamic duo capable of out-planning, out-maneuvering, and out-charming nearly anyone in a radius of 500 miles. The Eastern Mediterranean becomes functional, thriving, stable, a sentence no Roman senator has ever written without crying. Your days are filled with activity. Naval officers report to you both about pirate suppression efforts and coastal patrols you weren't going to let sea bandits undo your hard work. Tax assessors bring their ledgers, which you scan with ruthless accuracy. Local rulers shuffle forward for meetings, bowing low, probably practicing their greetings all morning because standing before two powerful leaders is intimidating enough to scramble their verbal settings. Antony, for all his bluster and battlefield bravado, surprises many with his administrative competence that flourishes under your guidance. He appreciates having a partner who actually understands economics. You appreciate having a co-governor who isn't afraid of decisive action. It works. Together you are running a geopolitical symphony. And oh, do people talk? Some whisper that Antony is under your spell, the ancient world's go-to explanation for any time a woman achieves something impressive. Others insist you are under his spell because he is Roman and loud and occasionally shirtless. The truth is far less dramatic. You're simply effective together. No magic, no manipulation, just synergy, ambition, and an aggressively aligned to-do list. You raise armies, not small ones either. You help outfit legions with Egyptian grain, Egyptian gold, Egyptian supplies. You've turned Egypt into Antony's backbone. And Antony, he isn't complaining. He knows your support isn't charity, it's partnership. And then there are the project's literal projects. Cities are reorganized, ports are expanded, trade routes are secured, roads are repaired, temples are refurbished, diplomatic protocols are streamlined because you absolutely cannot deal with another envoy arriving 3 hours late with excuses about camel traffic. You travel with Antony across the region visiting Tarsus, Antioch, Ephesus, drawing crowds that make local officials sweat profusely as they scramble to assemble welcome ceremonies worthy of royalty. Every arrival is a political event, every departure a strategic statement. The people you govern notice something unusual. You keep your promises. Taxes stabilize. Corruption rumors die down. Administrative chaos diminishes. And while Antony's presence reassures Roman officials that the East is under control, it is your competence that convinces the locals everything will be okay. And of course, all this activity terrifies Rome. Rome does not like when the East stops being a chaotic, loosely managed mess. Rome thrives on dysfunction at their comfort zone. So when they hear that Antony and Cleopatra have formed a functioning, effective, efficient regional government, senators clutch their toga hems in fear. They whisper that you are building an empire within an empire, that Antony's too happy, that you have too much influence, which frankly is correct. You are not just running Egypt, you are helping run half the Mediterranean. You've become a stabilizing force, a patron of regional prosperity, a strategist with a reach extending beyond the Nile Delta, and that scares the crumbling foundations of Roman politics more than any army ever could. Because when Cleopatra and Antony work together, the world doesn't fall apart, it falls in line. You and Antony divide lands to your children. Rome reacts with the enthusiasm of someone finding out their ex is thriving. If Cleopatra and Antony were already a political nightmare for Rome, the donations of Alexandria are the moment you both stop hinting at power and start handing it out like Oprah distributing cars. It is bold, it is theatrical, it is deeply administrative. And it sends Rome into an emotional spiral so dramatic it could have been performed on stage with lyres playing in the background. Let's just set the stage. It is 34 BCE, and you and Antony are tired of Rome's constant suspicion, tired of senators who write passive-aggressive letters, tired of Octavian's increasingly smug face showing up in reports. So you decide to make your own announcement, your own ceremony, your own political statement so large no one in the Mediterranean can ignore it. Enter the donations. The event unfolds in Alexandria's gymnasium, an enormous open-air space that can hold thousands of spectators. The air is electric with anticipation. Banners flutter in the Nile breeze, scribes sharpen styluses, priests murmur blessings, Nobles jostle for seats. The crowd pulses like the opening night of an ancient Beyoncé concert, and then you arrive. Dressed as Isis Radiant, commanding, shimmering in gold, Antony appears beside you as Dionysus, because of course he does. Subtlety has left the building. You take your places on golden thrones, elevated high above the throng, and Alexandria erupts in a wave of cheers so loud it could probably be heard in Cyprus. Then comes the main event, the distribution of kingdoms. You declare your son, Caesarion, as King of Kings, a title so loaded it practically detonates upon announcement. Rome always insisted Caesar had a single heir, Octavian. And here you are publicly elevating your own son with the confidence of someone who truly does not fear angry senators with sharp styluses. And it continues. Your twins with Antony Alexander Helios and Cleopatra Selene receive vast territories in the east. Alexander gets Armenia, Media, and Parthian lands, some still hypothetical but that's beside the point. Cleopatra Selene is given Cyrenaica and Crete. Even your youngest, Ptolemy Philadelphus, receives Syria, Phoenicia, and Cilicia. You're not just dividing land, you're distributing legacy. You are drawing a map that places Egypt and your children at the center of the Eastern Mediterranean. The crowd roars with approval. Alexandria sees this as a rebirth of empire, a restoration of Eastern power in a world dominated by Rome. Priests praise you. Poets begin composing lines before the ceremony even ends. Mothers lift their children onto shoulders so they can witness the moment. The people adore you. And Rome absolutely combusts. News of the donations reaches the Senate like a bomb dropped on an anthill. Senators shriek, senators faint. Senators pour wine at 9 a.m. because the emotional burden is simply too heavy. They accuse Antony of losing his Roman virtues. They accuse you of bewitching him. They accuse the children of existing too confidently. Every accusation is a thin layer of panic frosting spread over a giant cake of insecurity. The Senate insists Antony has gone eastern. Rome is terrified of the East, mostly because they don't understand it, and also because deep down they know Eastern wealth could buy and sell half their political careers. They claim Antony plans to move the capital from Rome to Alexandria, a rumour you neither confirm nor deny because honestly, letting them sweat is its own reward. And Octavian? Octavian smells opportunity. He immediately weaponizes the donations as political ammunition, pointing to your ceremony as proof Antony wants to establish a dynasty that bypasses Rome. He frames it as treason, as betrayal, as the worst thing to happen since someone forgot to sacrifice to Jupiter before a Senate meeting. Back in Alexandria, though, you don't let Rome's tantrums ruin your moment. The donations cement your vision for a powerful Eastern Empire. They strengthen your children's positions. They elevate Egypt to status. They clarify your alliance with Antony not as a fling, not as a curiosity, but as a structured, intentional dynastic partnership. The ceremony ends with applause echoing through the city, incense swirling into the sky, and you standing tall with a calm, regal certainty that rattles the bones of every Roman senator watching from afar. Because the donations aren't just about land, they are about declaring publicly, confidently, defiantly, that Cleopatra and Antony are not pieces in Rome's game. You are players in your own. And Rome absolutely hates that. Octavian decides to ruin your reputation with the world's earliest political smear campaign. Congrats, you're officially ancient history's first tabloid target. Remember when your biggest problem was your brother trying to exile you. Good times, simpler times. Because now you are dealing with Octavian, Rome's rising political wunderkind, the type of man who alphabetizes his threats, invests heavily in passive-aggressive speeches, and has the emotional constitution of a marble bust. And he has decided you are enemy number one. Why? Because he can stand that Antony adores you. because Egypt is wealthy and powerful, because you refuse to be intimidated, and because nothing terrifies Roman elites more than a brilliant woman who governs successfully while wearing stunning jewelry. So Octavian does what any insecure politician with too much time and too many scribes would do. He launches a smear campaign so intense it makes modern tabloids look like polite newsletters. Let us set the scene. Rome is buzzing with gossip. Senators whisper in hallways. Informants circle taverns. Scribes sharpen their styluses with malicious enthusiasm. And at the centre of it all stands Octavian, calculating every rumour like he's crafting the perfect political lasagna layer upon layer of dramatic nonsense. He tells Rome that you've bewitched Antony with Eastern decadence, that you've seduced him into betraying Roman values, that you are a manipulator, a temptress, a foreign threat wrapped in gold and eyeliner. He paints you as the villain of every story, dangerous, exotic, irrational, scheming. The caricature of a woman too powerful for Roman comfort, and the citizens eat it up like free festival bread. After all, scandal is delicious, and blaming a foreign queen for Rome's problems is easier than acknowledging Rome's problems are in fact Rome. Octavian commissions pamphlets, yes, actual political leaflets claiming you plan to conquer Rome. He insists Antony wants to give you the Roman Empire, that he has abandoned his duties, that he is not Roman anymore but Egyptianized. In their minds, this is a horrifying transformation, as if Antony suddenly showed up wearing eyeliner and saying, "Let us talk feelings." Meanwhile, Antony tries to counter the propaganda, but Octavian has something Antony doesn't: a fan base. Rome loves Octavian, the boyish hero who markets himself as a defender of tradition, even though he also happens to be dismantling the Republic with both hands. But people adore a hypocrite with good branding. Octavianus' propaganda grows bolder. He claims you worship Antony as a god. He claims Antony is weak, drunk, controlled by you. He claims you two plan to rule from Alexandria and make Rome your pet province. He even distributes Antony as private letters real or forged to prove that Antony has fallen. It is the ancient world-s version of leaking screenshots. But none of this propaganda is random. It is calculated, weaponized. Because Octavian isn't just trying to ruin your reputation, he's trying to justify a war. The Roman people will not support a conflict against Antony alone, but a war against a foreign queen. That they can get behind. He casts you as the serpent in Rome's garden, the threat from the east, the woman who must be defeated for Rome to restore its virtue, whatever that means for a city that solves most problems with stabbing. Back in Alexandria, you read each report with the weariness of a mother whose children have lied creatively about why the kitchen is on fire. Antony fumes. You remain composed. After all, Egypt has seen centuries of rivalries, invasions, and political noise. Octavian's smear campaign isn't the first attack on your legitimacy, and it won to be the last. But you also understand something crucial. Propaganda is an EST about truth. It's about repetition. The more Octavian repeats the lies, the more Rome believes them, and soon it becomes clear this isn't just slander. It is the drumbeat of war. Rome isn't afraid of you because you're wicked. Rome is afraid of you because you are effective, because you lead, because you refuse to bow, because you and Antony together form a system of power Rome cannot control. And nothing terrifies a crumbling republic like a woman it can silence. So Octavian tightens his narrative until it becomes one simple message: Rome versus Cleopatra. Civilization versus chaos. The West versus the East. Us versus her. You become the symbol of everything Rome thinks it fears, which ironically only proves how powerful you truly are. But Rome's tantrum is just beginning, and the storm it unleashes is about to change everything. Rome declares war on Cleopatra, not Antony, not Egypt, just you, personally. It is both insulting and historically inconvenient. If Octavian S. propaganda campaign was the ancient equivalent of subtweeting you non-stop, the declaration of war is him flipping a table, dramatically pointing at you and shouting, "She started it." It is petty. It is political theatre of the highest order. It is also historically absurd. Rome does not declare war on Antony. Rome does not declare war on Egypt. Rome declares war on you, Cleopatra VII, one woman. And while this is deeply insulting because, honestly, what kind of empire singles out a single person like a middle school rivalry? It is also a power move so transparent you can practically see Octavian S. sweat through the scroll. Let us set the scene. You and Antony are in Alexandria, governing effectively as ever when word arrives. A Roman emissary kneels before you, reading Octavian S. proclamation with that tone bureaucrats use when they know they're delivering nonsense. The scroll announces, with the confidence of someone who has never met you, that Rome is forced to go to war to liberate Antony from your corrupting influence. In other words, Octavian wants your head, and Antony is just collateral boyfriend. You sit there on your throne, listening, expression calm while internally thinking, "Really? You're blaming me for Rome's political meltdown? Sir, have you met your Senate?" Antony hears the news and immediately goes into dramatic general mode. He paces, he calls for his officers, he rants about how Octavian is a child tyrant in training. You quietly sip wine because honestly, Antony's rants are excellent background noise for strategizing. Then you regroup. Your war council gathers Egyptian commanders, Roman loyalists, naval officers, and advisors who have lived through enough palace intrigue to recognize full-scale Roman nonsense when they see it. Everyone knows what this declaration means. Octavian intends to erase both of you from history, not metaphorically, not symbolically. He wants Egypt absorbed, Antony removed, and your line erased, which is inconvenient. So you begin preparing. Egypt mobilizes its fleets. The harbors of Alexandria and the coastlines of the eastern Mediterranean buzz with activity. Shipwrights hammer. Sailors practice maneuvers. Supplies are loaded, catalogued, guarded. Your navy is strong, one of the best in the ancient world. Antony S. forces, though battered by Roman politics, remain disciplined and battle-ready. But even with strong forces, the tension grows. You and Antony must shape a strategy that blends Egyptian resources with Roman military experience. You must anticipate Octavian S. moves like you are playing the world's most stressful three-dimensional chess match. And the clock is ticking, because Octavian is rallying the Roman legions with the emotional manipulation skills of a toxic motivational speaker. He gives speeches about saving Rome from your Eastern tyranny. He claims Antony has betrayed his patria. He waves Antonius will reel or forge before crowds to stoke outrage. Rome eats it up. They always do. Outrage is their favorite seasoning. Meanwhile, your life becomes a whirlwind of naval inspections, supply logistics, diplomatic reinforcement, troop training, and long strategy nights with Antony poring over maps lit by flickering oil lamps, arguing over tactics, trying to foresee every angle. Antony fights with heart. You fight with precision. Together, you craft a battle plan for what will become one of the ancient world SE most famous confrontations. But as war preparations intensify, so does the emotional strain. The world sees you as mythic figures, queen and general, lovers and leaders, larger than life. But inside your private chambers, you feel the weight, the fear, the awareness that this war isn't just political, it's personal. Octavian isn't trying to stop Antony. He's trying to destroy you, your power, your legacy, your influence, everything you built. Yet still you do not break. You steel yourself. You stand tall. You command armies with a calm fierceness that terrifies the men who once doubted you. Because if Rome wants a war with Cleopatra, then Rome will get Cleopatra in full force, not the caricature Octavian invented, but the real woman. Strategic, sharp, unshakable, prepared to fight for her life, her children, and her kingdom. The war begins not with an explosion, but with a quiet moment of realization. Rome has chosen you, and now you choose how the story ends. Your combined fleet faces Octavian-esque navy, and things go downhill faster than a rolling chariot wheel. On the bright side, the sunset that day, gorgeous. There are battles you win. There are battles you survive. And then there's the Battle of Actium, a catastrophic nautical meltdown wrapped in a stunning Mediterranean backdrop that really didn't need to go so hard on the scenery. Let S set the stage. It's 31 BCE. You and Antony have gathered one of the largest fleets the ancient world has ever seen. Massive quinqueremes, towers bristling with archers, armoured hulls glinting under the Ionian sun. It looks impressive. It feels unstoppable. It smells faintly of victory and olive oil. But then there's Octavian-esque navy, commanded by Agrippa, a man so competent it is honestly rude. His ships are faster, lighter, and maneuverable in ways that make your heavy warships look like floating banquet halls. Agrippa has studied your fleet like he is preparing for a final exam in how to ruin Cleopatra's week. You anchor near Actium, a tight, windy bay that might as well have had a sign reading, "Welcome, fleets. Please enjoy your fate." Your ships line up along the coastline. Antony commands the center. You oversee the reserve squadron, and everyone waits, tension thick as temple incense. Hours pass, the sea breeze shifts, the sun climbs, sailors sweat, officers mutter. You and Antony stand on deck pretending to look serene, while mentally screaming into the void. Then it begins. Octavian-esque fleet advances with terrifying precision. They move like a school of angry fish, tight formation, synchronized strokes, no drama, no hesitation. Meanwhile, your fleet tries to pivot its massive, lumbering ships across tricky winds and choppy waters. It tastes like watching someone attempt ballet choreography in a full suit of armor. Agrippa-esque ships start circling, darting in and out like mosquitoes with naval engineering degrees. They hurl flaming projectiles. They ram your ship's oars. They disrupt formations. You watch the carefully planned lines dissolve into a swirling, splintering chaos that smells like smoke, panic, and disappointment. Still, Antony-esque men fight fiercely. Arrows fly, shields clash, marines leap from deck to deck. The whole sea seems to thunder with shouting and clashing iron. It is brutal, bloody, and overwhelming. You stand on the royal flagship, wind whipping your hair, heart pounding in your chest. You're watching history unfold, and not in the "this will be a triumph someday" way. More in the future, historians will use this as a cautionary tale in leadership courses way. And then comes the moment, the infamous moment. You see a gap in the battle lines, a narrow escape route, a sliver of possibility. Your reserve squadron, still mostly intact, could break through and survive. You weigh the reality. If you stay, you risk capture or death. If you flee, you can regroup, protect Egypt, and preserve your dynasty. You make the call, the hardest call a ruler can make. You signal your squadron. The sails unfurl, the ships pivot. You head for the open sea. Antony, seeing your ships withdrawing, faces the impossible choice between continuing the battle or following the person who anchors his life, his purpose, and his political future. He chooses you. He boards a small galley, breaks through the fighting, and follows your sails into the horizon. Historians love to debate this moment. Was it strategy, panic, miscommunication, a calculated retreat, a romantic impulse? In reality, it's a tragic cocktail of all the above war turning sideways faster than anyone anticipated. Behind you, the fleet collapses into pandemonium. Ships burn, sailors scream, officers drown. Agrippa tightens his net. It is a devastating, heartbreaking loss. But yes, the sunset is stunning. The sky bleeds gold and crimson across the waves. Clouds glow like fire. The sea reflects it in glittering streaks. It's absurdly beautiful in the way only the universe can manage during humanity's worst moments. As your ships cut through the water, your heart heavy, your mind racing, you can't help but notice. Even in disaster, the world insists on being beautiful, and that beauty hurts. You flee toward Egypt. Antony follows. Behind you, Actium smoulders. Ahead of you, a reckoning. Because no matter how dramatic the scenery, no matter how lovely the sunset, no matter how gripping the story, you know the truth in your bones. This war isn't over, but its ending is approaching faster than the tide. You and Antony escape to Alexandria to regroup, strategize, and silently panic, mostly in that order. The journey back to Egypt after Actium has the exact emotional texture of a season finale, where every character is quietly spiraling but pretending everything is fine. The winds are calm, the sea is glittering, the horizon is cinematic, but the atmosphere on board? Oh, it is thick enough to spread on bread. You and Antony stand on deck staring at the waves like they personally offended you. Behind you, the smoke of Actium has barely faded. Ahead of you lies Alexandria, your city, your sanctuary, your fortress. The one place on Earth that still feels like yours. But now, even it seems to shimmer with unease. When you finally reach Alexandria's harbours, the greeting is warm, your people love you. Deeply, fiercely. They cheer, they throw flowers, they shout blessings. You wave, smile, nod. It is a royal welcome. But inside you're both carrying a truth too heavy to show. The tide has turned. Rome is coming. And this time, they are not playing. Still, there's no collapsing into despair here. You get to work. Regrouping. Step 1 of try not to die. The palace becomes a hive of frantic, beautifully scented urgency. Advisors rush in with scrolls. Messengers arrive breathless. Priests offer omens of wildly inconsistent quality. Generals stride around, trying to look confident while silently calculating the odds of survival. You convene your council immediately, because Cleopatra Sessetha does not wallow. She plans. The first meetings involve logistics. How many ships survived? How many soldiers remain loyal? What is the food storage? What is the treasury status? Is anyone crying in the hallway? Answer, yes, probably. You keep your expression composed, regal, unbothered, because panic is contagious, and so is confidence. And right now, Egypt needs confidence like Rome needs therapy. Antony S. Spiral, a man in full melodrama mode. Antony, meanwhile, is suffering the kind of identity crisis usually reserved for mythological heroes. He is devastated by the defeat, humiliated, ashamed, and emotionally unstable in the distinctly Roman way, where brooding looks suspiciously like performance art. He paces, he broods, he drinks, he declares dramatically that he has lost the world. He sometimes shirtlessly stares out palace windows, like he's auditioning for a tragic poetry anthology. You know this version of him. You have seen him bounce back before. But Actium hit differently, and so you give him space while simultaneously preventing him from making any decisions involving swords, scrolls, or diplomacy while emotional. Your own spiral, but silent. You don't have the luxury of public despair. You hold yourself together like a queen made of steel and eyeliner. But alone in your chambers, in the quiet of night, you think, what will happen to Egypt? What will happen to my children? What will Rome do to us? Still, you do not break. You recalibrate. Strategizing. The we can still fix. This probably maybe phase. You and Antony begin to strategize. Long nights, quiet voices, maps scattered across your table, plans rising and falling like the Nile. You consider rebuilding the fleet, rallying loyal allies, fortifying Alexandria, negotiating from a position of dignity, attempting to sway Roman factions, appealing to Octavian, gross but maybe necessary. Antony suggests bold moves. You suggest realistic ones. Together you forge a plan as fragile as a papyrus boat but better than nothing. Alexandria holds its breath. Your city feels it, the tension, the uncertainty, the sense of something approaching. The markets stay open, the temples burn incense, the harbour bustles, but underneath the normal rhythm is a quiet drumbeat. Rome is coming. Rome is coming. Rome is coming. And yet, Alexandria still loves you, supports you, believes in you. People leave offerings for your protection. Priests pray to Isis, Hathor, Bastet. Mothers whisper your name with hope. Children chant songs about your victories. You are not alone. Moments of humanity between the storms. Between war meetings and sleepless nights, you find brief islands of peace. Walking through lotus gardens at dusk, holding Caesarion*s hand while pointing out constellations, laughing softly with Antony over memories of better years, breathing in the warm Egyptian air that feels like home. These moments matter. They give strength. They remind you why you fight. But underneath everything is the truth. Actium was not the end. It was the beginning of the endgame. Rome is reorganizing. Octavian is mobilizing. Agrippa is plotting his next naval masterpiece. And you are preparing for the final chapter. No one can stop now. Your life has officially entered its season finale phase, full of tension, heartbreak, and the kind of dramatic build-up that makes historians lean forward centuries later. You and Antony stand at the balcony of your palace, looking out at Alexandria glowing in the moonlight. Your kingdom, your people, your legacy. You hold your breath. The storm is almost here. Faced with being paraded through Rome as a trophy, you choose your own ending. Whether it is poison or asp, you leave the world on your own terms. There comes a moment in every legendary life when the story narrows, when all the noise, all the politics, all the victories and defeats dissolve into a single point of clarity. For you, that point arrives in a quiet chamber in Alexandria, surrounded not by soldiers or advisors, but by the weight of history pressing down like desert heat. Rome is at your doorstep. Octavian is inside your palace. Antony is gone. Your children are your last heartbeat of hope. And you, Cleopatra, pharaoh of Egypt, daughter of the gods, are out of time. Let us set the scene. Alexandria is subdued. The city has fallen to Octavian*s forces. The great library still stands, but the intellectual hum that once filled the air feels muted. Priests whisper prayers that sound more like farewells. The palace halls echo with footsteps that don't belong to your guards anymore. And you sit in a chamber that once felt opulent, now transformed into a gilded waiting room for your fate. You know what Rome wants. You know what Octavian wants. You know what every defeated monarch fears most. A triumph. Not the celebratory kind where you receive garlands and applause. The Roman kind, where you have marched through the streets in chains displayed, mocked, humiliated, your power reduced to a spectacle for a cheering crowd that has never set foot in your kingdom. You picture it. Your arms bound, your crown gone, your name twisted in Roman mouths, your life ending as a footnote in another man's parade. You reject it instantly. Cleopatra 7 does not get dragged through the streets like a souvenir. Not after everything you've survived. Not after everything you've built. Not after the lineage, the empire, the centuries of Ptolemaic rule culminating in you. So you begin making arrangements, not loud ones, not public ones, but quiet, controlled steps toward the only option that maintains your power, dignity, and purpose. You secure the future of your surviving children, Cleopatra Selene, Alexander Helios, and Ptolemy Philadelphus. You negotiate, bargain, beg where necessary, manipulate where possible. You ensure they are taken in by powerful Roman families with influence and soft hearts. You know you want to be there to raise them, but you can still shape their survival. And then you prepare yourself, not theatrically, not dramatically, not with the flair you used for barge entrances or royal ceremonies. This choice is private, sacred, painfully human. You retreat to your mausoleum, a place you designed with the awareness that someday you'd need a sanctuary that answered not to Rome, but to eternity. The room is cool, dimly lit, filled with golden furniture, incense, and the faint echo of your own footsteps. There are two handmaidens with you, loyal, loving, terrified. They know what this means even before you speak. Octavian S. men hover nearby, but they are too late. They always were. And then comes the question that scholars will bicker over for thousands of years. Asp or poison? The truth, it does not matter. Not to the historians, not to Rome, not to the world. What matters is control. Some say you arranged for a basket of figs to be delivered. Hidden beneath the fruit, a small asp symbol of royalty, death, and rebirth waiting to strike. Others insist your personal physicians prepared a lethal concoction, swift, painless, crafted with precision befitting a queen. Your choice remains your own secret, your final act deliberately obscured. What is certain is this: you sit upon a golden couch, wearing the regalia of a monarch. Your bracelets gleam. Your coal-lined eyes remain steady. You inhale incense, rich and fragrant, filling your lungs like a final prayer. Your handmaidens weep softly. You do not, because fear is for the powerless. You still hold power even now, especially now. You lift your chin. You make the gesture. You take your destiny into your own hands. And as the poison reaches your heart, quiet, creeping, merciful, your final thoughts are not of Rome, not of Octavian, not of defeat. They are of Egypt, of the Nile, of the sun rising over lotus-filled waters, of temple bells at dawn, of your children's faces, of a legacy carved not in stone, but in influence and impact. You do not die as a prisoner, you die as a pharaoh, on your own terms, in your own kingdom, with your dignity intact and your story sealed. Rome will erase, distort, embellish. Historians will argue, poets will dramatize, enemies will sneer. But none of it changes the truth. Cleopatra chose her ending. A queen until the last breath, a legend ever after. After your death, Egypt becomes a Roman province. Your reign ends, but your legend begins etched into history with gold, ink, and an unreasonable amount of eyeliner. The moment you take your last breath, something in Alexandria shifts quietly, deeply, like the city itself is exhaling a centuries-long story. The palace grows still, the murmurs fade, the incense cools, and somewhere beyond the palace walls an empire holds its breath, because the queen, has left the world. And then reality, heavy and unceremonious, sets in. Rome moves fast. Octavian, ever the efficient administrator with the emotional warmth of a marble column, assumes control of Alexandria with the delicacy of a man rearranging furniture he does not own. He walks the palace halls, evaluating, cataloguing, thinking, calculating. He claims your treasury, your archives, your kingdom. He does not touch your body. Even he understands that some legacies are too powerful to desecrate. Egypt, at long last, falls fully into Roman hands, not as a respected ally, but as a conquered province. A jewel in Rome's imperial crown. A personal property of Octavian, who soon becomes Augustus, Rome's first emperor. He will present your fall as triumph, your death as necessity, your story as a warning, and yet no matter how hard or Rome tries, they cannot erase you. The end of the Ptolemaic dynasty is swift. Your children are taken to Rome, folded into political households, repurposed as living symbols of Augustus's mercy. Cleopatra Selene, brilliant even in youth, will grow into a queen in her own right. Your sons will fade tragically under the weight of Roman politics. Egypt's monarchy dissolves. Its traditions continue, but its autonomy dies with you. The temples continue their rituals, but now the offerings are counted by Roman officials. The priests bow before new overlords, even as they whisper your name into the incense smoke. The markets stay busy, the Nile still rises, the lotus still blooms, but everything is changed. Egypt becomes Rome's grain basket, its wealth siphoned westward, its future redirected. But here is the thing Rome does not understand. You cannot conquer memory. Your story spreads beyond borders carried by traders, sailors, scholars, and poets. People whisper about the queen who spoke 9 languages, commanded armies, and negotiated with the greatest men of her age. They remember the woman who ruled not by fear, but by intellect and charisma, and a spine of steel. Rome thinks they've acclaimed you. Instead, they amplify you. Writers turn you into myth. Artists immortalize your face. Poets reinterpret your love and power. Historians argue about you across millennia, and the world becomes obsessed. Because you are not just a queen, not just a ruler, not just a mother, lover, strategist, or scholar. You are a symbol of defiance, a symbol of sovereignty, a symbol of brilliance wielded by a woman in a world terrified of her power. The dynasty ends, yes. Egypt falls, yes. But your legend begins. Children centuries later read your name in scrolls and stories. Artists paint your likeness, even if they've never seen Egypt. Playwrights turn your life into spectacle. Films and novels embellish you, reshape you, rediscover you over and over again. Historians debate your choices. Feminists reclaim your voice. Skeptics question your myths. Romantics adore your ferocity. And through it all, your image persists sharp, undeniable, iconic. Because Cleopatra is not just a person. She is an era, a phenomenon, a gravitational force in human imagination. Rome took your kingdom. But they never took your story. Not really. Not ever. Your reign ends on a golden couch in a quiet room. But your legend sails on forever, shimmering like the Nile at sunrise. And so tonight, as you lie here drifting between the waking world and sleep, we leave behind the incense-soaked halls of Alexandria, the marble floors, the whispering courtiers, and the impossible weight of ruling an empire under the greedy gaze of Rome. You've walked beside Cleopatra through childhood conspiracies, desert exiles, golden barges, political triumphs, naval disasters, and the final quiet moment when she chose her fate instead of letting anyone else define it. You've seen her brilliance, her humour, her resilience, and the sheer human exhaustion of keeping an entire kingdom upright while half the Mediterranean tried to set it on fire. You've watched her navigate a world shaped by ambition and uncertainty, with a steady gaze and eyeliner sharp enough to cut through propaganda. And maybe, just maybe, you felt a strange sense of empathy for a queen who had to juggle grain shipments, family backstabbing, military strategy, and the occasional Roman meltdown all before breakfast. But now, as you sink deeper into your pillow, let your mind loosen its hold on the drama. Let the battles fade. Let the shouting Romans dissolve. Let the desert winds soften into the sound of your own breathing. Because for all its chaos, Cleopatra's world reminds us of something simple and grounding. That human beings across centuries, languages, and empires have always been stubborn, hopeful, tired, brilliant, ridiculous, fragile, and somehow still standing. So tonight, as you tuck yourself into a clean, warm bed with indoor plumbing, stable electricity, and absolutely zero risk of being smuggled into a political negotiation inside a rug, maybe whisper a quiet thank you to everyone who survived before you. Thank the ancient workers who built cities that still stand. Thank the ancestors who dealt with floods and famine so you could complain about to battery. And yes, maybe even thank Cleopatra for being proof that greatness doesn't mean perfection. It means rising again and again, even when the world insists on pushing you down. You are safe now. No Roman legions, no palace intrigue, no sibling coups. Just the soft glow of your bedroom, the hum of your fan, and the gentle weight of rest pulling you closer. Let your eyes grow heavy. Let your breath slow. Let the world quiet itself around you. Because history might be full of noise and chaos, but your night doesn't have to be. Sleep well, and I'll see you in the next adventure.